I can tell the judge was in there. This guy's still trying to figure out to make the right decision. So he's going to ask her. Then we had a lot of people that left.
I'm going to Venezuela.
They said, just tell us what's going on here. It was like a common answer. People, why do you just finish this for 2 years? How many times? I don't get shaken. So he came from the ladies to the rest of the team. Shakes my hand, looks me in the eyes, and says, you can see what you're doing. I told you, when a judge, you respect.
Yeah, tells you this.
Looks you around, shakes your hand. So what you continue, what you're doing. I'm not sure, you're a prosecutor to get these cases.
Wow.
So
So
we
you're,
have all this.
you're a leader there. Yeah.
Because you need to find somebody who has standing, right?
No, I'm an attorney.
No, I mean, if you're going to,
Now, you're on probation, I'll make a. It seems like I represent my family businesses and so on.
You're welcome.
If you're going to appeal, you're gonna stand up there.
Mary, I gave all the copies to
You need to be, if you're a resident, you have to stand.
What was his name?
You're a taxpayer in the county, you could challenge your assessment of any property on the side.
I'm not talking about assessment, we're not talking about values.
I'm talking about, using the long-term tax exemption, because the long-term tax exemption is back in the county tax. And I've been standing up and game on these. We'll dismiss your case for lack of standing, then we'll have to do that. A lot of people don't understand that, or didn't know, I found through Oprah, the one state agency that's responsible for funding most affordable housing received a federal subpoena in 2019. They didn't disclose it to me in March. But there's some investigations.
So,
No, that's the point, they haven't, finished public, I used to say they have no idea what the, the obligation is for.
Third round. They're still
They
negotiating.
haven't negotiated it.
They're still in the process, they can't, that's the whole point, that we don't know.
And we're in a really bad shape because we haven't done quite a piece of shit. So because we're so far behind on our own too, it looks really bad.
What was the range of units?
So one is good, it's 100, 140. And round three
Anything
is
else?
90.
Can I get paid too?
Just-
Let's be real, say, let's face it, state's not vicious, we do know the harm, you understand that issues. You know, they love it, and I'm saying, just tell us, but.
Yeah.
It's bad. In 2018, it's
Well, I suspect that it hasn't been going for a long time.
Yeah, they submitted a plan in 18, 4 days late. And it basically says, because we're a built-up village, built-up town, our obligation is only 17 units.
Well, no, I wasn't talking about I was talking about, we need a comprehensive plan in general.
Oh,
They did a master plan,
Totally
yes,
outdated.
2018, they updated this.
The whole thing, or just certain sections?
No, they did the whole town, and they amended it to take into
that was
account,
father.
no, over there.
Probably
They
right.
haven't amended it as well.
Wells Fargo?
Where?
Or Wells Fargo?
Jeff?
Jeff's your dad still?
They're in Florida.
And your mother?
Both
In Florida, they went together? Your mother
Oh,
used to drive me
I don't
crazy.
know, I don't know, they haven't called me in about 6 weeks. They're mad at me.
Yeah, man.
well, that's okay.
I didn't
Please
realize
continue
until
free for
he
this.
told me the last name. Oh, I know your parents forever and ever and ever and ever.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Did you get my email?
Yeah, earlier.
Did you have a chance to read that paragraph?
So all of this is.
What did I know you wanted to do?
Yes.
brother.
They're introducing it.
Hey, no.
You know, and I told him for years, you don't take care of someone.
So, Jimmy, are they amending the ordinance for the restaurants tonight or reintroducing it?
I would imagine reintroduced because they tabled it.
So now they have to reintroduce it.
I think so. I'm not sure. I have to see. It depends on the changes.
So did they give the new ordinance though?
I'm not sure. That's Christine handles that.
Can I take this?
Yeah, you can take a copy of that. Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
Well, under Trump, about 2 years ago, they created a system of saying it's concerned with
Right.
this area.
So,
You invest money.
yes, because it was 125 foot setback that people want on.
It's a big step, I mean, it really is saying that, lifetime change is always pushing 50 rules. They're saying that you take to your lifetime change theory, you hold it everything here, you never have to pay anything.
Any tax?
Any tax.
Whoa.
But the number is too low.
No, but it's not an opportunity.
There's gonna be a protest.
Put it in the
You have to be allowed to figure out how that's. Somebody, it's just a, it's a code.
That's what they do now.
I will, I think, places,
They want to paint
and
the
that's
street.
kind of like, we're suing the city.
Yes, oh, yes, those are.
It's not really useful, yeah.
Oh, so wait a second, it's saying here that this is to project out. Do they, are they planning to do it? I can't follow.
That's what I say.
Yeah, I can't follow these people.
We're not thinking through.
Yeah.
Exactly, I know
That was
this
one of the
is
high
middle
school
school.
kids. So is that gonna go discussed? No, nothing gets discussed, we're talking to, we better all talking to them. It's been taken.
Are we gonna have a podium? 'Cause it's hard to like talk when you don't have a.
Yeah, we should just put a brick wall there, and talk to them.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they don't put like those crazy
Can you get another podium or something that we can, it's kind of hard to read and the mask and,
How come you took away the podium?
Sorry?
we must have another podium or something.
What about this one over here?
Well, that one's holding the laptop.
Tackle laptops and then the chair?
Maybe we can find
No,
another.
they left that set up. I'll see if I can find another one.
Yeah, with their IT problems, I wouldn't touch
So it's
it.
fine, we're all.
Yeah.
We're saying like three.
Right. I'll see if I can find another one. We have to leave that as it is.
Thank you.
Yep.
Remember commercial radio? There used to be a promo for radio.
Right, your neighbor, friend, Annette Carter, Jody, she owns the Ivy Theater building. Diane.
Oh, yeah, I would. I had
Lauren's gonna kill me.
So Lord, don't ever just, one of those again.
We needed her job.
Yeah. That was decided before we sat down. She's fully aware of that.
Well, she knows I'm just trying to say it.
funny thing is, when I was going to that was our dentist office in Melbourne, and our kids, we had a dentist, then insurance changed, and somebody else. And my son needed orthodontist, we interviewed a few, we really liked the daughter. And so, but when we went the first time, I'm like, this is the same place I used to go as a kid. And then I go down the stairs, and I'm like, it's the same office we used to go to. Then I go in, I'm like, it's the same place. Yes, I remember the orange and silver. She's done a wonderful job. She does amazing work. Our son had big cats. She straightens it all out. That's hilarious. That's great. Well, it's nice to put a face with a connection. You too. We need it, but we're trying. We're working hard. Like, I can't follow it all, but it was awesome.
Not that
Being not a lawyer.
You guys want to have a seat here?
See your name.
Can we just practice sharing your screen real quick? You got the presentation screen.
I wasn't sure about that, or Eric on the phone, or if he had it on his end, but.
The same thing. The one that I sent.
Want me to pull that?
Yeah, that same one. It's the same. It's just gonna be easier.
Yeah, I had that.
Right.
All you gotta do is send, I didn't send it to a postcard, I wrote it, you had to tell the people in the
Well, at the middle school,
We're just about there.
so they split it into each chapter, each the same format. I know, but like, come on, we gotta fix that, or really?
I just have to set up on the laptop, you have to sign it, do it.
What? I don't know why. You trying to hack us?
Something else. This particular one. Oh, really? I mean, hardcore. Like out here on the screen. It was on our screen at home. I was at home. Kind of, no, it was not funny at the time. Jack wanted to die. She was like, oh my God. It's really bad. After the fact, you could laugh about it, but while it was happening, it was horrifying.
You don't mind? Just a couple enough
You have to get like a private number.
Yeah, and then you have to let people actually in.
Yes, there's an invitation for everyone else.
I
It's all chilly in here, so we have jackets.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. We're good, yeah. I think we started the day together, right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
That was pretty bad form. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Where, Jackie, where's the, oh, this is it, this is it, this is the business thing? This is the restaurant ordinance? 2560, yeah. This is a restaurant ordinance?
Yes, we should.
It's cold in here. How you doing? Yeah. Yeah, I'm good.
Well, cold, or I'll see if I can. Just wait a little while, get a little warmer.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Starts passing right now, so I'm cold and I have to filter out. Yes, they are, they're right here, they're just kind of in the wings. Yeah. Now
Revolving around that.
Yeah, no problem. We can't talk about it, right? Yeah. So I think we'll make that clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
When is, Alex, when is Paul calling in, and Joe? When are Paul and, oh, okay, they'll come on?
Yeah, well, we got.
When we call, when we let them in? Oh, I see, got it, great.
Here, do you
And
need
this
that?
is, and this is the restaurant, right? The restaurant, yep. Good.
Bad mask.
Yeah, that's the first of the ordinances.
Yeah, okay.
okay. We'll see if this works better. Can everyone hear me? Yep? Great. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, September 1st. Please all stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Burstein? Is there a roll call?
Yes.
Sorry, having a little technical. Ms. Burstein? Ms. Prupus?
Here.
Ms. Stahl-Eglo?
Here.
Mr. Wasserman?
Here.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the July 14th, 2020 Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the July 14th Special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, sorry.
Any opposed? Okay. On to reports. I'll go first. We currently have 175 cases of COVID-19 in the township. In Essex County is reporting 20,129. 83% have recovered. These numbers are cumulative, and those residents that are recovered are still counted in our totals. As you all know, Governor Murphy has mandated that masks be worn at all times when social distancing is not possible. Essex County continues to offer free testing at multiple times per week. Please register at essexcovid.org. We have extended outdoor dining on Main Street through September 27th and have received positive feedback that residents are enjoying the outdoor space for fitness as well as overall community engagement. We have numerous restaurants enjoying creative outdoor dining, including the parking lot at Essex and Main, a parklet on Main Street below Millburn Avenue, and other private lots. Please be sure to participate and support our local businesses and all they have to offer. And remember to wear your mask at all times in accordance with Executive Order 163 in public spaces when social distancing is not possible. Additionally, yesterday, Governor Murphy said beginning Friday, September 4th, he signed Executive Order 183, which will allow indoor dining at a capacity up to 25%. Please know that parking fees will begin today, September 1st. The township has been on a fee hiatus since mid-March, and we are grateful to the township for this break. We rely on these monies from the parking utility for our overall budget. Essex County will be providing another COVID-19 testing site in Millburn on September 24th. This will be located at the parking lot 7, Millburn train station. Lot 7 will be closed on that day for commuters, and all are encouraged to use Library Lot 9 and the parking deck. This township will share additional information as it is made available. We have 2 new stores and a ribbon cuttings. Tomorrow there will be one at 9 a.m. and one at 9:30 for 2 new businesses. Teen Facial, 87 Main Street, followed by Casa de Natas at 348 Millburn Avenue. The box wraps. The boxes at Douglas Street, Town Hall Plaza, Duncan, Parking Lot 1, and Millburn and Main will be wrapped this Thursday, September 3rd. We are very pleased to have that little bit of color and some contemporary artwork to brighten those locations. The CETA Art and Advisory Committee, the CETA Committee and the Art Advisory Committee have been working closely together and will be moving towards the finalist stage of the Taylor Park art installation. We have selected 5 finalists that will be sharing their vision for the Taylor Park installment. A review of the work will take place on Wednesday, October 7th with both committees via Zoom, and a finalist will be chosen on October 14th. Thank you to all the members of both committees for their participation in the process. It has been an exciting one, and I am grateful to all those that have given their time. On Wednesday, September 9th, a week from tomorrow at 7 o'clock, the township will be hosting a Zoom call with our police chief, Brian Gilfetter, to discuss Millburn's policies and procedures regarding training and community safety with our police department. There will be a follow-up discussion and presentation. This is a follow-up discussion and presentation from Sergeant Blazinski that was several months ago when he addressed the TC regarding ongoing police training and community safety protocols. Details will be posted on our website and all other community channels. The new bid SID will have its inaugural meeting on Thursday, September 10th at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom. Additional details will be posted on the township website. This meeting has been properly noticed in all the requisite publications. Who would like to share their reports next? Committeewoman Eglo?
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna have to remove this because it's really hard. Good evening, everybody. I would start by asking my fellow TC members if they agree that it is important to have transparency in government and good communication between all elected committee members. Can you agree for that? Okay. Okay, I am concerned that information is not being shared by the subcommittees with all TC members. The recently passed SID ordinance was passed by the majority of 3 TC members on August 11th, 2020. The papers of incorporation for the SID, named MISHBO, were filed on August 27th, 2020. I find all this extremely concerning. We only heard opposition from the town's commercial property owners. We did not hear support from the merchants, who will not only be paying for this in 2022, but who MISHBO is meant to serve. The commercial property owners are very concerned with the ability for the SID to borrow money, which they will have to pay back through tax assessments. This is an area I have tried to get clarification on without success. I want to share information from the Downtown Business Improvement Loan Fund. A district management corporation, a DMC, which MISHBO is, can borrow up to $600,000. The DBIZ loan fund, this is the quote from their Google page, fund page is intended to provide support to purchase, lease, condemn, acquire land, or an interest therein as necessary for the right-of-way or other easement to or from the zone, relocate and move persons displaced by the acquisition of land, the rehabilitation, the redevelopment of land, acquisition, construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, or installation of parking and other public facilities and improvements. Costs of appraisals or other professional services directly related to effectuating the improvement. Their concern is where is their protection when the SID borrows money? They will all be reassessed, and who ultimately is making these decisions? The only support we heard on August 11th was from the several of the subcommittee's pre-selected Board of Trustees, who, only by chance did I learn of their in-person meeting the morning of July 30th, prior to the SID ordinance being passed and incorporated. Is this allowed? Was this a violation? Was this discussed? Are there minutes? Did they set their agenda, goals, and objectives? Have officers been predetermined? How dare Jackie, Tara, and Richard keep the property owners, merchants, and the residents the people who will pay for this in the dark. This SID has the potential to borrow and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of the town's surplus and also place a huge financial burden on our businesses. This is unacceptable, and now the township is being sued. I was quite shocked to learn that during the last TC meeting. Our own attorney said he did not see the papers until 5 minutes before our meetings. Thus, they weren't reviewed, leaving Kit unable to speak to this and to properly inform and direct the TC. So I felt it was prudent to put forth the motion to table the SID ordinance. A second was by Committeewoman Burstein. Yet there was not even a discussion. The mayor immediately asked for a motion and a second to vote to pass this SID tax. I did not know, I still do not know what the urgency was to pass this new SID tax, except the mayor told me it was urgent. So urgent, in fact, that she would not allow for the usual public meeting in between first read and adoption, assuring, in my opinion, that less time would be allowed for objectors to be heard. Or is there some other timeline that is being followed that I'm not privy to? Perhaps the mayor and Committeeman Wasserman, who made up the subcommittee, would care to share what was the urgency.
I have no comment.
Committeeman Wasserman, what was the urgency?
Well, as we said in our previous meetings, we went over the urgency, which was a 17% vacancy rate, and there were a lot of other facts, that propelled us to create the bid SID. But now that we're being sued, as you know, Mr. Falcon, are we allowed to discuss different do we have instructions in terms of discussion of the bid SID now that we're under a lawsuit?
I'm sorry, I wish you could speak up a little. I didn't hear your response to the question, and I would want to, as a general proposition, yes. Since litigation has been commenced, it's the policy of the Township Committee, and of course in this instance too, not to comment upon or discuss any aspect of the allegations that have been made. In the first case, the lawsuit, and then of course there's the notice of Civil Rights Act and Section 1982 violations. None of that, of course, should be discussed in public, or for that matter, in private, or on a street corner, or at a diner, or anywhere. If the question that you have just been asked falls within that purview, then that's not something that should be discussed. And I'm afraid your head was turned the other way. Could you repeat the question?
My question was why the mayor and Committeeman Wasserman, who made up the subcommittee, felt it was so urgent to pass the SID when there was only objections, it was during a pandemic, and the property owners and the merchants were closed for 3 months. I didn't understand the urgency to push this.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, we've laid out very clearly our arguments. I think, as you know, we had 2 public sessions with property owners as well as with merchants that was open to everybody. And we've laid out, our argument of why we think it's important to have a bid SID. I'll also point out that our neighboring towns like Summit and Morristown and Springfield have, along with many other towns, have SIDs and have used them very effectively to combat vacancies and to advocate for merchants and to fill vacancies and to do a host of other things. And so there's a very strong argument for creating a bid SID, especially in Millburn. We have, as I just mentioned, we have a 17% vacancy rate. If you look around the township right now, on the corner of Millburn and Main Street, I think for the first time in my memory, you have an entire vacant corner, you know. So the question for me is, does the township, you know, decide to stand by and do nothing, you know, or do we decide to take action and do something to help our businesses and to support our businesses and to, you know, to try to stem the vacancies and fill these spaces excuse me, Nancy, can I finish? Nancy, can I finish?
If Nancy is allowed to talk,
Yeah.
can we also talk?
No. Anyway, but we've
Okay,
laid
so-
out, wait,
wait,
I'm not
wait.
done. I just want to say that we've had, you know, 2 public meetings, we've discussed this, you know, in detail, and the narrative that you offer, that we're out to borrow money, that there's a secret agenda, this is a false narrative. This is a false narrative. It's not true. And all we want to do is support our town. We want to support our businesses. We want to try to make a difference here. And everything we're doing is being done in a sincere manner. This is being done, you know, this is what I, you know, personally, this is what we ran on, Diane and
Richard,
you.
let's not
No,
go
no, let's go there. We ran on this together. We told thousands of Millburn residents that we supported the bid. It's in the record. You can look it up. Look at our debate. You know, this has all been, you know, this is a consistent, you know, this is something that I ran on. It's consistent. It's something you ran on, and you flipped on it. Okay.
Okay, and I did say I would like to counter with, I believe the pandemic.
Wait,
Are we in a debate here?
No,
This is
wait.
a
Having a
report.
discussion.
What is
I'm
going,
just
this isn't even
responding.
discussion,
I
this is
just wanted to be
report.
clear
This is
that this
reports.
is something
Okay.
that we
Okay.
discussed in detail, and this is something I ran on, and this is something that I was elected to do.
Okay, okay,
I would-
that's the urgency.
Okay, I will add one thing. I did not realize that I could comment. I know the township is currently under litigation, and therefore I chose not to comment, but I will now. Thank you, Mr. Falcon. The urgency is the 17% vacancy. The reason why we made the proposal for the bid and followed it up by that is to catch this fall market. When the weather is still good and that we can still engage our residents and hopefully get some programming and some activities and some citizen engagement underway and not miss the fall session.
How will the SID rent out?
So,
Oh,
excuse,
no.
no. Excuse me, you do not have the right to speak. Excuse me, and you will be asked to leave, as will anybody else that does not follow protocol. This is a business meeting, and we will conduct ourselves in a professional fashion. So the urgency is the timetable. If we move quickly, hopefully we can get some activities and some engagement underway. And that's the reason.
Okay. I felt things had changed due to the pandemic and due that there was only objections. So, I'm also wondering, perhaps it has something to do with the presentation by Perkins Eastman for the downtown area vision plan later this evening.
Excuse me.
Jackie, this is the rest of my report, please. That subcommittee consists of Mayor, Deputy Prupus, and Committeeman Wasserman. RFPs went out, and the subcommittee selected 4 of 6 respondents were chosen to be interviewed by the full interview panel. I do not know how that panel was chosen. Then 2 finalists were interviewed by only Ms. Prupus, Mr. Wasserman, and Alex McDonald, and they selected Perkins Eastman. A steering committee of 7 residents, including Ms. Prupus and Mr. Wasserman, has already been pre-selected, just as the SID's Board of Trustees has been pre-selected. What is going on? The problem is we do not know, and I certainly do not know. It was expected that the full TC would be involved in this process before the final firm was selected. I never heard from the subcommittee during this entire process. Then on August 11th, Ms. Prupus announced that Perkins Eastman was the finalist and would be presenting tonight. Their intent is to ratify a contract for approval at the next TC meeting. This seems to be a done deal. This is not how our town's business should be conducted. Once again, Jackie, Tara, and Richard are keeping our townspeople in the dark and spending down the surplus with impunity. That is my report. Oh, and I would like to add about the free parking. I was asked by a merchant in town if we would, once it was announced that we would be extending the closure on Main Street if it would not be equitable to have free parking in the rest of the business districts. And I thought that sounded like a very fair idea, since everyone seems to think we're favoring the downtown, which has worked out wonderfully. And then I asked Alex, I waited a couple days for a response, and then I asked you to put it out to the township committee members, and it looked like just Committeewoman Burstein and I agreed that it would be fair and equitable to continue the free parking for one more month. So I'm sorry that that didn't happen, and there was no agreement for a majority of the township committee members. And that is my report for this evening. Oh, mask on.
Excellent. I'm gonna table my report to introducing Perkins Eastman and talking about the process that we went, that I'm really proud of, and I know that my the subcommittee is proud of, and so I'll continue that in a little bit.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yeah, I was just like to say that I was enjoying dinner on Main Street, and I think that it's turned into a great place for community in our town. I know that I've talked to many of the restaurants there, and I think we've really done a good service for the township, and it's great. I mean, it's great. It was totally full, and I was really happy to see that. And I also want to mention that, you know, in being around town and seeing everybody, I think, you know, I'm very proud of my fellow residents for wearing their masks and being diligent. I'm very happy. I always in my committee page, I've been posting, you know, the official numbers, and I tell you, we've held very steady. People have been very responsible, and I think it's something that we shouldn't take for granted. I think something we can be very proud of, that we really held through the storm, you know, together. So that's my report.
Mr. Falcon, would you like to report, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. This is a brief follow-up on my report at the July meeting concerning the ongoing mediation sessions convened by the court special master in connection with the township's pending declaratory judgment suit. As you'll recall, this suit seeks the approval of the township master plan's housing element and fair share plan, which will determine the number of housing units which would satisfy Millburn's obligation to provide for its fair share of low and moderate income housing. Unless and until the case is settled by means of mediation, or in the alternative as the result of a trial, the number of affordable housing units to be established as Millburn's responsibility remains undetermined. There are two interrelated mediations currently underway. As I reported last month, one has to do with the proposed development by Woodmont Properties of a property they are seeking to acquire on JFK Parkway from the New Jersey American Water Company. It's a matter of public information that this property is subject to a state-imposed moratorium on the conveyance of land located within a watershed, unless approved by the Watershed Property Review Board at DEP. The mediation for Woodmont was held in August and reported to Judge Gardner at a case management conference. The court has directed that the mediation concerning this property continue. The other mediation involves the more generally Millburn's housing element and fair share plan. The mediation session took place as convened by the special master, Mr. Frank Banish, also in August, and attended by the Millburn Steering Committee and representatives of the Fair Share Housing Center, a court-sanctioned housing advocacy group, which is a participant in all such cases. The Millburn Steering Committee met to review comments on the plan recently prepared by Fair Share, and a mediation session previously scheduled for today was unfortunately adjourned due to the apparent unavailability of the Fair Share representatives and Mr. Banish. It will undoubtedly be rescheduled. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Falcon. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mayor. Just three brief reports. A while back, the committee had tasked or asked what would be done with the area by what is now Finnern Way and Canoe Brook Road. There is a portion of roadway between that is not used, and what would be done to block that from use. The township is installing 2 large gates on either end that will be locked and accessible only by the Department of Public Works and the utilities that do run on that road, which is JCP&L, and there is a sewer line under that roadway as well. We are still exploring some other possibilities for the 1,500 square feet of roadway that was given to the township through quick claim deeds, which could be possibly a shed or other structure for DPW to use. And we are currently pricing that out. That should be completed next week, by the end of next week, but that is determined by the order of those gates and the installation of those gates. The township has received and continues to apply for CARES reimbursement through Essex County, in which we've received another check for a time period between April and July in the amount of approximately $261,000. We are also doing the preliminary damage assessment from Tropical Storm Isaias in the event that is a recognized storm under FEMA, and that we may receive reimbursement from that. On September 13th, the township is going to host its inaugural Tour to Millburn, a bike event throughout the township. Excited to report that the 7-mile and the 12-mile loops are full. Registrants it was open to 75 registrants, and those are full. The 2-mile loop, which is a closed course in and around the South Mountain area, was open to 100 because we expected families. There is still room there, and registration is open until tomorrow, to the close of business tomorrow, if residents are interested. Those are my reports for today.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Mr. Vincent Wong and please. Yep. Thank you. Good evening. Millburn Township resident Vincent Wong, a rising sophomore at Seton Hall Prep, has been in scouting since the 3rd grade, first as a Cub Scout, then crossing over to become a Boy Scout. Vincent is quite an active member of the troop and has been elected to be a senior patrol leader of Troop 17 and is a prospective Eagle Scout. Vincent's interest in environmental matters led him to collaborate with the Millburn Green Team on this Eagle Scout project. He was to have presented his project in person at the Green Team Sustainability Fair this past April. When the event was canceled, Vincent decided to take his community sustainability education project virtually. Every Saturday in September, I'll share this publicly after my remarks. With participation from his fellow troop members, they will be presenting a sustainability virtual event program from 11 to 11:30 a.m. These sessions will cover the importance of native plants, climate change, the crucial role of bats and sustainability, and the 6 R's of zero waste and sustainability awareness. You can find the schedule and Zoom links to these sessions on the Millburn Green Teams page on the township website, twp.millburn.nj.us. I encourage all community members of all ages to join these Zoom sessions. Of particular note here tonight is the subject of Vincent's third session, bats. I think you will all be happily surprised after joining this week 3 session when any negative misconceptions you may have about bats are dispelled. During the September 19th session, you will hear from Vincent about the extremely beneficial role that bats play in our ecosystems. Attracting bats to the township's open spaces and to residential yards can help to naturally reduce the presence of mosquitoes they eat, which should lead to a reduction or elimination in the use of pesticides. As part of this Eagle Scout project, Vincent is here tonight to present our township with 4 bat houses that he and his fellow troop members assisted in constructing. By hanging these bat houses, we can attract bats, support a natural means of reducing mosquitoes, and help to restore balance in our ecosystems. Vincent, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, distinguished members of the Township Committee and fellow citizens. My name is Vincent Wong, and I am a Life Scout of Troop 17, located in St. Rose of Lima Church, Short Hills, New Jersey. Today, more than ever, it is important for all members of our community to do our part to respect the environment. If we all pitch in, we can certainly future preserve our earth for the future generations. In partnership with the Millburn Township Green Team, I'll be hosting a virtual educational series on Zoom each Saturday of September from 11 to 11:30 a.m. The focus of my Eagle Scout project is geared towards sustainability topics, specifically importance of native plants, impacts of climate change, crucial role of bats for sustainability, and the 6 R's of zero waste and sustainability awareness. In addition to preparing the content for the online program, my volunteers and I have also constructed 4 bat houses. Bats are a key component in not only pollinating plants and distributing seeds, but also in cutting down on mosquitoes and other insects, which serves as a natural pest control. Displayed in front of you are the 2 bat houses that my volunteers constructed under my guidance at the request of the Green Team for the Millburn Township. I understand they will be given to the proper people at the Department of Public Works for hanging where the township determines is best. I would also like to thank all of my fellow Troop 17 Scouts who helped me throughout my project. Alessia O'Connor, Dominic O'Connor, James Beecham, Liam Pilarski, Lucas Davis, Nikki Starace, and Ryan Cannon. I would also like to extend my gratitude to Troop 19 Scoutmaster and my Eagle Scout project coach, Mr. Cannon, and of course, the co-chair of the Millburn Township Green Team, Mrs. Paparian, for her active support. If you would like to learn more about my Eagle Scout project or join my online outreach and educational program, please visit the Millburn Township Green Team website or see me after this meeting and I can give you a flyer. I want to thank you for your time, and I am hopeful to see all of you in a virtual meeting in the coming weeks. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Next, we'll have the Downtown Area Vision Plan presented by Perkins Eastman. And before we begin, I'd like to thank Deputy Mayor Krupis and Committeeman Richard Wasserman on their hard work for this project.
So, and I'm just going to give a little bit of, before I call up Eric Fung and Perkins Eastman, I just want to address the process that we went through to get to this evening, which I'm super excited about. So we started this process back in the beginning of the year in January, where the full committee was supportive of undergoing a vision plan, and the RFPs went out. A few different people helped from the planning board work on the RFPs, and do we have, right, so we have Paul Phillips and Joe Mariziti, who are very instrumental in this whole process as well. Joe Mariziti is an attorney, our attorney during this process, and Paul Phillips is our town planner. And the RFPs went out in February before COVID happened. There was a deadline extension, and they came back in, the proposals, 6 proposals came back in April. At that point, we invited well, we went over the proposals and we landed on 4 of them. Two of them were kind of outliers, and we decided that they wouldn't even be appropriate to bring to the next level. The subcommittee consisted of Committeeman Wasserman, Business Administrator Alex McDonald, Paul Phillips, our town planner, Joe Mariziti, and myself. And the full committee knew about all of this. And I had reported along the way, and it was always reported, it was always determined that in the end, we would have one planning firm present fully to the township committee, which is where we are tonight. So once we determined who the 4 firms were, we brought in 3 members of our planning board, our chair, Beth Zoll, former mayor Dan Baer, and Jorge Mastropetro, who also sits on the environmental commission. So these are, and who happen to all be planners in their own professions. We had Joe Mariziti, our attorney, make sure that there were no conflicts all along this process, all along the way, just to make sure that this was an open and transparent process that had full support of the committee all along the way. Never heard anything else through all the reports and all the months that we've been doing this for. So we interviewed all 4 firms the first or second week in June. We did back-to-back meetings. We then met with that committee with the planning board members, and we came down to 2, and we enumerated all of them, including our professionals in that. We then we had meetings with both of the 2 selected firms. At that point, we decided that and we invited them to come and walk the downtown, and we decided that it would be appropriate at that point for the interview process to come down to Committeeman Richard Wasserman and Alex and myself. Both firms came and walked the downtown with us. We had further conversations. We might have had one more meeting. We ended up with 2 proposals that through this process, we decided to relook at the scope. We got the scopes comparing apples to apples. We got it all down. Our budgets came in, and then ultimately we decided to move forward with Perkins Eastman, and they are here tonight. And I, for one, am really proud of this process. I'd like to just open the floor to Paul Phillips and Joe Mariziti, if you guys would like to chime in for just a few minutes on your take on this whole process, having both of you been through this before in other towns. I would love for you to share some of your experience through this.
Good evening, Councilwoman and Mayor, members of the Township Committee. I'll take a very brief minute and turn it over to Paul Phillips, because most of the substantive part of the evaluation is more in the hands of the thinking of Paul Phillips than mine as an attorney. But I can say, having represented municipalities throughout the state in redevelopment over the last 2 decades, I have not been part of such a thorough, comprehensive, and open process as the one that you have conducted. I sat in on all of the interviews. I reviewed all of the proposals. You couldn't go wrong with any one of them, I don't think. You had, as is not surprising for Millburn, the cream of the crop responding, and it was a very informative process, a very educational process, especially coming right on the heels of the COVID-19 crisis. And of course, we spent time discussing the impacts of that experience, not only on the public participation process, which is so important, but also on the substantive vision for the downtown area, which will be impacted naturally by that experience. So I did, as you mentioned, look at conflict issues and concluded that there are none to be concerned about, and from a legal point of view, the process is absolutely stellar and clear and appropriate. And so, having said all of that, I will yield the floor to Paul Phillips, who has a lot more to say about the planning principles and the substance of the proposals than I will. I'll be happy to answer any questions later. Thank you, Joe. So I, as Tara indicated, was a member of the selection committee. I participated in the drafting of the RFP, an evaluation of the proposers, also participated in drafting questions that were part of the interview process and follow-up, and I also participated in the interviews with the proposers. I do have a lot of experience on sort of on both sides of the table with this process, in representing other municipalities as well as being on the proposer side during the course of my 35-year professional career. I think Tara thoroughly outlined the process. And if it's okay with you, Tara, what I'd like to do is I understand that the Perkins Eastman team is going to give a brief presentation, and perhaps I can just make a brief comment after the presentation if you feel that that's appropriate.
That sounds good to me. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to also, before Eric comes up and presents and introduces his team, Committeeman Wasserman, would you like to say a few words?
I will say a few words. This was really a very interesting and exciting process. We really had, as Paul said, we really had, maybe Joe said this, kind of the cream of the crop, present for our revisioning. I'm just thrilled that Perkins Eastman is here. They were just outstanding, and I'm very excited about your presentation. And I'm also very thankful to all of our professionals who spent hours and hours, in meetings and working this process. So it was definitely a group effort. Deputy Mayor, you did an outstanding job, and I think this really is going to be great for Millburn, and which is the bottom line. So with that,
Eric, you're up.
Hello, Madam Mayor and the members of the Township Council, and everyone who's come down to be here this evening. My name is Eric Bang. I'm a principal at Perkins Eastman. I'm here joined by my colleagues and partners, Susan Favate from BFJ Planning, and online, Larissa Ortiz. She's the bottom photo on the right, video. Hi, Larissa. I wanted to just do a couple things. First is to introduce you to our team, tell you a little bit about ourselves, our background, and our organizations, and the resources that we bring to this effort. I wanted to share some initial impressions of the downtown, just from we've done a lot of homework and we've hoofed it. We've walked the downtown, and driven the surrounding areas, and then finally just tell you a little bit how we plan to get the job done. So we're going to go on to our first slide, Larissa. Okay, that's all of us. Okay. Perkins Eastman is an architecture and planning firm. We're based in New York City. We're a very diverse practice. We do everything from hospitals to multifamily residential to hotels and schools and so forth. The corner of the practice that I reside in is we focus on places and towns and communities. And I will tell you a little bit about some of the work that we've done in our practice, which is focusing on focusing on many different places throughout the country and throughout this region and New Jersey itself. Battery Park City is one of our hallmark projects. More recently, we've been responsible for a new district in Washington, D.C. called the District Wharf on the Washington Channel. We've worked in other communities, smaller communities in the metropolitan area. Southampton is one of them. And then we've done diversity of different building types, from everything from smaller community civic buildings like the Cleveland Park Library in Washington. This is the center picture is Innovation Cathedral that we recently completed for Audible.com. It's in downtown Newark. It was an old Presbyterian church that was converted through adaptive reuse to a tech center. It's very, very interesting. And then on the right, a new community called Arvern by the Sea, and that's a picture on the lower right. It's partially obscured, that shows the environment that we created around the transit center. So we've worked in a lot of communities that have transit, that have similar attributes, and we think that we can bring a lot of these experiences to downtown Millburn. So I guess one thing about our team before we go on to some of the impressions of the downtown is that we've all worked together. We've worked together for many years. Each of us brings kind of a different perspective and different disciplinary focus. And the one thing that I think is kind of unique is that each of us has also served on our local, and is serving, I think, continue to serve on our own local planning boards and commissions. So we know what it's like to be on the other side, and we know acutely, not only kind of from our professional perspective, but also from the public side, a lot of the different issues, particularly around building consensus and the process and so forth. So I think that gives us a little bit of more sensitivity to the issues that the township is confronting. So we move on to the downtown. One thing that's striking is really have everything, right? You have I'll go through a series of impressions of the downtown. Larissa can go on to the next slide. You have pedestrian-friendly streets. They're very, very well scaled. The blocks are not too big. There's a lot of interest as you walk down the sidewalks. The sidewalks have a nice scale and feel. There's street trees. Keep going here. Next slide. There's smaller spaces, alleys that go back to the, extend to parking and parks and so forth. Advance the slide. You have culture, which is a very rare thing in the Paper Mill Playhouse. Keep going. You have entertainment. That's a rarity these days. Most of movie theaters are out in the Cineplex, someplace out on a strip somewhere. You have great parks, which is, again, a rarity because they come right into downtown. Next slide. Beautiful civic buildings with a lot of character. And you already have a mix of uses, different activities on the upper levels and the ground levels. It's something that has been a major trend of the last several years, and you already have all those things. So none of these things would be introduced as new or novel. So you have a lot of building blocks. Keep going. You also have diverse architecture. You have historic buildings, with a lot of historic character, but you also have newer modern architecture. You have multi-level downtown parking, which is also kind of a holy grail for downtowns. And you even have the river, which could be a plague or it could be something that's, a wonderful asset. We think it could be something that could be harnessed for really, great ends toward the downtown. So, it's all there. This is the official study area. If you look at the core downtown area, it's all within a very easy 1,200-foot radius, which is basically, the distance that people would be willing to walk. If you look at most malls, they're about that distance because, people have studied through history. That's the comfortable walking distance, about 10 minutes end to end. Keep going. There's development potential. There are vacant sites. Keep going. And then there are town-owned assets that may have other potential, and that's one of the things that we're going to look at as well. And look at bring some of the different experiences that we've had in the possibilities for reusing these types of facilities and properties. And right now, there's so much that we believe that is possible. Of course, it's a changing world that we're in right now. Nobody knows the future, particularly the current moment that we're in. And I'll tell you, when we started this process responding to the RFP, we were just at the beginning of this. And I think just in the past several months since that time, we've learned so much. And then we've learned so much that we don't know as well. But, we think that every predicament, every turning point, there's an opportunity. So next slide. So with that, I'd like to introduce Susan from Susan Badakabate, who's a partner at BFJ Planning.
Hi, thank you. I'm very happy to be here tonight. I live in Chatham next door, so I love Millburn. I'm here pretty often. It's our local movie theater. We really hope it'll open soon. So I'm very excited to be on this project, bringing my expertise to someplace that I already know and love. BFJ Planning has been around since 1980. We are a full-service planning firm based in Manhattan. We actually share office space with Perkins Eastman, so we're sort of like sister firms. We have 5 core practice areas. We have basic planning and zoning. We do, I would say, about 2/3 of our work is for municipalities on the public side. We do some work on the private sector, but heavily on the public side. We do a lot of urban design work, often in conjunction with Perkins Eastman. We have environmental analysis that we do, real estate consulting, and then we have a transportation planning group. All of that can be brought to bear as appropriate on this project, but myself and 2 others would be primarily working on this. And we have some experience. The image on that slide showed you, we recently did a master plan update in Hoboken where we looked especially at their commercial zoning and implemented some zoning changes as a result of that. Next slide, Larissa. So just to give you a sense of overall approach and how we're sort of looking at this project, we wanted to give you kind of a case study of a community that we think is really comparable and to show you sort of from planning to implementation kind of what could happen if you had a successful downtown plan. And I think overall our approach really is not intended to come in and drastically transform the downtown. And Eric went through a compelling series of slides that really shows you have a great downtown already. And I think a lot of people really love it. All the pieces are here. It's in very good shape. And so I think our approach would be very surgical, looking primarily at the public realm. And by that we mean what the sidewalks are like, what the park is like, how it all connects, what the public experiences as you're in the downtown area and traversing through the downtown. There are some opportunity sites that could offer themselves for future development. So for those, we'd look at what are the opportunities to do that type of development in a way that the community accepts and that the community is comfortable with. So a major part of that is building consensus and hearing from the community themselves. So Scarsdale, New York, is a very comparable community to you all. Most of you probably heard of it. It's in Westchester County, about the same size, about the same distance on a rail line into Manhattan. Very similar socioeconomically, and great school district as well. So here there are 2 sites in particular that our firms have been involved with over the years. The first one is just north of the train station. It's Christie Place. And then more recently, BFJ has been involved in what's called the Freightway site. So Larissa, next slide, we'll kind of go into these. We can go through these really quickly just to give you a flavor of Scarsdale. Obviously very beautiful. It's in great shape. Really iconic downtown. So next slide. So Christie Place was an underutilized site, and about 10 or 12 years ago, Perkins Eastman initially got involved working on the development side and working very closely with the town to do a public-private partnership. The town wanted to make sure that obviously the development was in keeping with their character, and they wanted to get some public parking out of it as well. And the result was a senior living facility that you can see here. It's been built, and then there is public parking underground. It's actually been quite a success story, both on just the market side. It's full, very popular, and also from the public side, other municipalities love the idea that you can get public parking and get a developer to pay for it. So, and this is done in New York. We do not have the redevelopment law, so this was all done just with some basic incentives. Here in New Jersey, we have redevelopment that helps us even more and gives even more tools to communities and helps municipalities be in the driver's seat. But this is a good example of a success story. I think there's more on the next slide. You can just see, yeah. So the next site, which has been more recent in the last couple of years, BFJ was involved in a visioning plan for this Freightway site, which consists of a parking garage that is past its useful life, not very well loved by the community, and some surface parking, and it's literally right at the train station. So a real opportunity site, had been looked at many times over the decades, and it was just very difficult for the community to gather around a clear consensus for what to do with it. So on the next slide, you see we engaged heavily with the community. We had lots of public workshops, walking tours, public surveys. looking at different options, presenting different scenarios, so that the community could really get a sense of trade-offs and what was entailed in each option. And the culmination of that vision plan on the next slide, I believe you'll see, is a set of principles which really outlines the type of development that the community wanted to see. And the implementation side of this is that then we assisted the town with an RFP process for a developer who would come in and develop something on the site that was consistent with these principles and the overall vision plan. They did go out to an RFQ and have some selected developer, and I believe that process is ongoing. So again, a success story showing how on a couple sites you can impact a big change without drastically changing the entire downtown. You keep the core of what's there, but you improve on these underutilized sites. So, as I said, a real key part of our process, and I think one of our major roles in this project, is building that consensus. And how do we do that, especially in an environment when we're challenged to meet in person? And we do feel strongly that a lot of the tools that we use usually in person, you can replicate in many communities to a large degree virtually if you do it the right way. And we actually invested early in the COVID process. We were already looking at technology to help us engage better with people virtually. So I'm just going to talk briefly about it in the next couple of slides. Some tools. This is an example of the platform that we use that allows things like here's an idea wall. Now on the left you see the in-person version of that. This was when we did a master plan out in Parsippany. On the right you can see the virtual version of that. It's actually really fun and people get into it. You can comment, put a comment on the wall. You can react to a comment. We monitor all of this, so it's kept civil, and it's a very, very strong way to engage people. We think this type of platform could actually work very well in Millburn. So in the next slide, I'm going to turn it to Larissa, and I'll be happy to take questions at the end.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, great. So I'm pleased to be part of this team. I'm here with Street Sense. I serve as the managing director of our New York City office, and we are really a firm that's focused pretty exclusively on consumer-led environments. I've spent the last 20 years working, 25 years now, working on Main Street and downtown environments, and at Street Sense we have sort of a little bit like retail on steroids. We think about research, we apply research to mall environments, shopping centers. We think through marketing and PR. So it's all the way from beginning to end through the creation of places, the transformation, the activation of spaces. And I'm personally very focused on the research side, which you'll see here. And our expertise sort of runs through real estate, hospitality, retail, food and beverage, workplace, and destinations. And those are all things that we find in downtown environments. And what I really want to talk about today, since we submitted our proposal, a lot has changed. I think we have to acknowledge that. The pandemic has created significant closures. I live in the city of New York, and I've worked with a number of downtown business improvement districts where the loss of office workers has decimated downtown businesses, particularly in the central business district. But that loss could potentially be Millburn's gain. Remote work and increased spending potential by people who are now staying at home during the day in spitting distance from the city, particularly if they only need to go in 1 or 2 days a week, create opportunities for you. And we're increasingly seeing through housing values and sales. There was an article 2 days ago in the New York Times about the move to suburbia, so the shift to suburbia and rising home prices. Whether that remains is a question, but it's certainly a trend we've identified now. We do recognize that we will continue to have to maintain delivery for businesses, and that new business models have to be incorporated into some of our existing businesses if they're going to survive and thrive. And that also means supporting contact-free measures over time, and helping businesses adapt to that. We know that social distancing will remain for the short term. We don't know how long, but that to survive this period in time, we have to help businesses with that. And also see more opportunity in that there's a lot more local travel happening, and people staying close to home, unable to get on the plane for vacation, and so they're having staycations. And towns like Millburn that are very quaint, great places to visit, become part of that short list. We do also see growth in tech adoption among businesses who are increasingly comfortable with these Zoom formats. And so, what does that mean for investments in broadband, for instance? What does that mean for a city that wants to maintain and be competitive when businesses are making those kind of site location decisions? And all of this comes down to regaining consumer confidence through this period of the pandemic and as we go forward. And so, as I think about it, I'm here to help you understand what is the market opportunity. We recognize we're in a really dynamic moment in time, and we're very excited to sort of bring all of the research that we've been doing and our sort of finger on the pulse of how this is changing and how it might be creating opportunities for you, and that will be our role in this project. And I pass it back to Eric.
Thank you. Thanks, Larissa and Susan. So I just want to talk a little bit to end this about our process in getting the job done. We plan to get this done in about 5-month time period. We organize our work into 3 steps. The first step is an analysis. That's where we're trying to learn everything about the town, both through data, through talking to people, and also through just actually looking and observing and looking at drawings and looking at things in real life, in real time. That to us is really the most important phase, because that's really the phase that frames all of the really big problems that we're trying to solve. I think that a lot of times people get the impression, you're working with architects, designers, planners, that you start to just draw things. And we find that the real challenge is defining what the problems are that need to be solved, rather than just getting pen to paper. The second phase is options. So at the conclusion of the analysis, we'll kind of define some of the key principles, planning principles and development principles for the downtown. And working off of those principles, we'll look at different variations so we can give you all some choices and understand how things play out. At the conclusion of that, we'll all try to arrive at together a preferred option, and then develop that preferred option to greater set of detail, and then wrap that up into a plan. So a couple of things. One is, go to the next slide, is that at the end of each phase, at each milestone, we'll be having outreach of different levels. So Susan's really going to be working with the committee closely to design a process that, we want to have big opportunities to reach the most amount of people, but we also know that sometimes people are inhibited when they're in larger crowds. So we want to also have opportunities to have smaller forums and to have more candid and frank, sharing of opinions. So we'll be designing a process that hits, all those different levels of interaction and engagement. A couple of our tenets are really that everybody should start together. We're not going to be out and running and starting to draw things and come up with ideas before we talk to people. We want to build consensus as we go. So we're not going to wait and keep developing things and then, ta-da, here it is. We want to make sure that every step of the way, everybody is kind of good. Consensus in our form of definition doesn't mean that everybody agrees. It's not unanimity. Everybody needs to understand what the thought process is, and there should be a general agreement of the direction that we're going. We built in pencils down period between each phase, so that the township and the committee can talk amongst yourselves, make sure that you're all good and solid, and to comment on certain details so we can kind of fine tune ourselves as we go along. And then the last thing I wanted to emphasize is that we are not starting with any kind of preconceived notion about the plan. We have impressions, and some of those impressions may be on the mark, some of them you may differ with, so we want to listen. So that first phase is so important, because we need to listen and to hear as many opinions as we can. And the other thing is that if you look at the first slide that I showed of our work, one thing that you'll notice is that all of the work that we showed in all the different locations, they all look different. So we're not a firm that has a signature style. You know, I think the hallmark of what we do, at least in the corner of the office that I practice in, is that we are really trying to channel the special qualities of the place, whether it's Washington, D.C., or New York City, or Southampton, or Hoboken, or wherever. And so that's what we want to try to find out. We want to make something that's authentically Millburn, right? So it has to resonate with your history, with the you know, the direction of how the sun comes in, the scale of your streets, and so forth. So that's what kind of gets us animated, and that's what we hope to achieve. So, and, you know, people, last thing, just philosophically is, you know, people, was it First President Bush said the vision thing, right? So people kind of can get intimidated, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It's not something that we interpret as something that's bestowed, you know, this is the vision from on high. We actually think of ourselves more as your pencils. So this is a community-driven vision, and we're just there to kind of, you know, put form to it, because that's what we know how to do, and put words to it. So, and with that, I'm going to wrap up. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Jackie, I think Paul wants.
Yeah. Paul?
Yeah, so I just want to say, and just to echo what Tara said in her introduction, that the township received 6 proposals, which I thought was really, really good, particularly since they came right smack in the middle of COVID-19. And I will say that I was personally familiar with 5 of the 6 proposers, including all 4 who were interviewed. And I can say that each of the firms interviewed basically was highly qualified and reputable in this field. I will say that the Perkins Eastman team is a very strong multidisciplinary team. I do believe that they bring to you the right mix of professionals to undertake the downtown vision plan on behalf of the township. They have expertise in public engagement, in downtown planning and revitalization, in urban design. And as you heard, and this is critical, I think, for downtown Millburn, in sort of real estate advisory and market feasibility. And I think most importantly, in relation to the sort of today's challenging retail environment, and particularly in the downtown context, which again I think was critical, not only to myself, but the entire selection committee. So with that said, I would add my voice of support to the Perkins Eastman team.
Thank you, Paul. Any members of the committee have questions for?
Yeah, Eric, I have some questions. So I want to say your presentation was beautiful. The pictures are beautiful. I'm not the voice of the naysayer. I just have to be a voice of getting some other questions out there, because if we all 5 agree on everything, then that's maybe not great policy either, right? Sure. So let me just ask a few questions. Okay, so this is being funded, the $200,000 bid, from the surplus, correct?
This is
the contract.
Yeah, the Perkins Eastman proposal is $189,000. It is going to be taken out of the capital improvement fund as a preliminary planning expenses.
Mm-hmm. So that's not out of the surplus?
Not a budget driver.
Okay. Okay, so Tara answered why the original interview panel was more people, and then you narrowed it down to just Tara, Richard, and you, Alex, for the final decision of the 2 committees, of the 2 finalists. And why was not all of the panelists involved in that portion? Yeah, I just want it clear for full public transparency.
Sure. Well, I can answer it. Can
Okay,
I answer
sure.
that? It was just more of a scheduling, and we had already gone through where everybody enumerated who they thought in an order, and it had, when we go back and look at that, everyone's clear that actually Perkins Eastman was, of everybody, it was the top #1 choice.
Okay, that's...
Yeah, so it was you know, and then when we did it, it was a timing, it was a scheduling. We didn't feel like we needed to pay our professionals at that point to be in the meetings. We felt like we had a good enough handle on what was going on as we went through the whole process.
Right, so Jorge and Beth Zoll
They were
and
not-
Dan Bear.
They were not part of meeting with the final two firms. Yeah.
Okay, so Dan Bear was very involved in this process, in the original interview?
I wouldn't say he was very involved. I would say that we invited, wait, why are we talking about Dan Bear?
I'm just, because I know Dan Bear was part of the original 2007 plan. I'm just bringing it up.
Okay, so yeah, so, yeah, hold on. So, and are you concerned about the fact that Dan Bear did a plan back in, I mean, do you want to give the history of what happened?
I don't really know the whole history, do you?
But I know parts of it, but what are you concerned about?
I'm just saying, I know Dan Bear was very instrumental in the 2007 downtown revisioning, and then for some reason it never happened.
Right. Well, I wasn't here at the time, but I think that, like, if you're concerned about, I'm still not, like, understanding about Dan
I just
Bear.
am talking about what I said, that I didn't know how any of this process was working.
But I've been
So I had
reporting on it,
questions.
like, along the way, every meeting. But it's okay, so
Okay.
let's, so go on.
So Dan Bear, okay.
So yes.
Yes, okay. I know Dan Bear was very involved in something that this is important to him. The township will be working with Mazer, our consulting, so our traffic engineer, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mazer was written into the RFP to work with whoever the recommended and selected firm was as the township's on-call traffic engineer.
Okay, so that's important to know, and they're a company that's been with Millburn a long time. Let's see. So there, I spoke to you about this, Alex, some redundancy that they will help with the SID, because we always talked about zoning and parking and things that the SID is going to be involved with. Will you be working with this newly established SID if it continues?
We want to talk to all parties that are relevant to downtown.
Something here, it says the respondent selected by and approved by the Township Committee will ultimately assist the Township Committee and Subcommittee in preparation of the Downtown Business District Vision Plan for Millburn Township, which shall be completed within 6 months. Do you still think that was your estimation before the pandemic, or even once you knew the pandemic was going to affect everything so negatively?
The timeframe.
The timeframe was 6 months. If this contract goes through and you start this process, is 6 months a reasonable time to get this entire scope of work done? Okay. Let's see. Working with municipally owned properties, underutilized, and may require consolidation, replacement, or relocation. I mean, we've discussed that our firehouse and our police building and this building is very old. So that would be part of this whole revisioning, possibly. I mean, you don't have any preconceived notions, possibly a municipal complex.
No, I mean, I think the one thing that we bring is experience, navigating towns such as Millburn through that process. Because the process is quite, it's quite complex. It's quite weighty, particularly you have a fairly large piece of property. And, so we bring knowledge and experience of the process, but we also bring experience with similar types of properties in our design work, so we know what the types of possibilities are.
Okay, great. And you said the towns were Scarsdale's the most similar to Millburn.
That's just one that we.
Yeah.
New Canaan, Connecticut is a very good comp. We did a downtown plan for them, also some of their municipal facilities. And we're all over Westchester.
All over New Jersey.
Yeah, so there's a lot.
Right, so a lot of towns comparable
Yes.
to our scope, yeah, it's really important. So it says here, provide progress updates on a monthly basis with at least 2 meetings specifically reporting to the Township Committee, Subcommittee, or other group established by the governing body. I just didn't understand what the other group would be.
Well, that's something that I think that we're going to roll up our sleeves, sit down with committee to design a process that we feel reaches, as I said, appropriately engages people at different levels, larger groups, smaller groups. I mean, I'll tell you, there are also, we need to talk to township staff, public works and so forth. Will certain things fly? How does the township operate? Every town is different, every city is different. So, it's a lot of technical that those things.
Okay.
You want to talk to different, stakeholders, merchants, property owners, residents. So we just want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases and we're hearing the most diversity of opinions.
The other thing, the proposal should include an hourly fee for additional services not listed but within the scope of the project. I'm sure you heard about our experience with arterial, and there was, maybe that's good. But there was a lot of overages and unexpected expenses that put the contract way out of what it originally was. So I think that's a concern. That would be a concern to me as a township committee person who's going to be responsible for how this money is going to be allocated and spent. So is there, what additional services not listed but within the scope of the project could be billed? Just a couple examples.
See, on a project like this, we can stay pretty focused.
Okay.
But, sometimes in response to queries from whomever it might be, how do you know X, Y, and Z? Can you prove, such and such? And sometimes additional studies are required, additional research. So sometimes those types of things will come up. But, we would not ever engage in anything in advance of having prior approval. Proposal process.
So it'd be pretty controlled and watched over. And the town did have a rather unfortunate experience.
We spent a lot of time on the scope and really
Yeah.
defining that and trying to make sure it's as tight as possible so that everybody understands what's involved.
Okay. Just two other things. On your project understanding, it said the goal should be to reorient traffic patterns to transform downtown from a place to drive through to a place to drive to and walk. Is this specifically referring to Millburn? Reorient traffic. I mean, that was part of our problem. It's very the only place to reorient traffic to is into the surrounding neighborhoods, which proved very problematic.
I think it's the reorient the attitude about traffic. We're not saying this street should go this way and that street should go that way, but that embodies our philosophy, which is that there are some towns that are drive-through, and the object is just to get through the town as quickly as possible, and those tend not to be the most walkable, charming places that you get to read. And there are some that you drive. I'm sorry, I'm just repeating the words, but
No.
that you drive to, and then you want to get out, you want to walk around, you want to stay there. And our impression is that that's the special quality that downtown Millburn has. So I think that said, it's in the middle of a big region, and so we know we have to balance these things.
Right. The executive committee or the primary decision-making client group, is that the steering committee?
Sometimes we use different.
Right, I know this is I don't know if this was all specifically drafted for Millburn.
Well, yeah, it was, but the terms that we are eventually going to arrive at, I think it is the same as the steering.
Okay, so that might be.
Ultimately, you need one. We're going to meet with different groups,
right?
Different sizes and different formats and so forth. But ultimately, you need one body that's they're the decision.
And two of the last things. I know that your initial bid came down by almost a third because of some environmental concerns. We do have a very active environmental committee, as you see from this, our Boy Scout tonight. So I know at a lot of our planning board meetings, a couple of the people on the board are always very concerned with lead, what's it called? Lead, not lead, obviously, lead. So, I mean, if those things come back into play, that would be addressed, but obviously that would kind of go beyond the scope of what.
We all come from larger organizations, and certain level of sustainability strategies, we just do it.
You know, okay.
What we had originally anticipated was possibly bringing a specialist just to deal with stormwater issues, the flooding. And I said, we brainstormed with them. I'll give them a plug. I'm sure we're design engineers are really crack, smart guys. And we've brainstormed with them, so we have some other ideas.
Okay, that was good.
and they've actually they volunteered to consult with us, bounce ideas off. So we're all kind of
Okay. And the last questions, I don't know if you'll be able to answer it. How does this all fit in with what Millburn's prospective affordable housing is going to be? Like, there's things we can't answer now because we don't have our numbers. We're still in, situations. So how does that going to play into all of your planning for us?
Well, I think a first step for me is speaking to your professionals to get, I mean, I know what I read in the papers, but I don't pretend to know anything more than that. So, to get a sense of where you are in the process, what's the context, because that is a very important element, to have an understanding of what the township's ongoing obligation is going to be. So it's not the housing element and fair share plan, but that does need to be reflected in what we do and understood and what we do.
Right. It would be nice if we had that number. Everyone's asking.
It would.
And
It
we
would,
don't.
but unfortunately, we can't control the timing of courts and special.
I know. Thank you. I just had all these questions, and I really appreciate your just being frank and forthcoming. Thank you.
And I just want to add that during the process, Committeewoman Eglo, we actually spent a lot of time on the scope, and it was one of my concerns that we not, that there not be extra expenses always, that's something that we wouldn't, think about. So I think we have a very good understanding in terms of what's being spent. If there is a request for, if there was some type of extra request for funds, I mean, you guys would come to us first and ask first. So there would be no, crazy bills coming in that we wouldn't know about. This basically encapsulates the whole process, unless there's something that pops up.
I guess I did have a lot of questions. I think at one point Alex told me that either you or Tara would be reaching out to me to have us sit down and give me a lot of information, but I didn't hear from either of you.
Yeah.
I've asked directly, and someone's going to the horse's mouth is just as well.
Well, that's why they're here.
Would have been nice to have heard from one of you,
And
but that's okay.
One thing that I just want to add, because I know that this has come up a lot in our affordable housing discussions and just different ideas that are being out, but one of the things that we engage in our planners was just, and Susan had even mentioned it, but the possibility of doing 55 and older housing. So just want that to be noted, that is, everybody is aware of all the conflicts and issues that we are dealing with in this moment while we await litigation and a number and all that. So thank you so much for the presentation, and Committeewoman Eglo, thank you for all your questions.
Thank you.
I just have one question. Yes, and then after the Township Committee finishes, we will take some calls from, some questions from the public. What was your most challenging from a community? You don't have to tell me which community, but what was the biggest hurdle that you had to engage in your tenure with a community?
I'm sure we all have different stories.
Yep. So confidentiality, I don't want to know the town, but what was the biggest and how did you overcome it?
We had done a lot of work, this is from my perspective, after Sandy. And I think that was really tough because people just wanted to get back into their homes, they just wanted to rebuild their communities, and we have some expertise in what's called resilience, which is building for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that we realized was that sometimes you can't just rebuild exactly what you had because it's going to get washed out. And so that was very important, trying to keep people's eyes sighted on the big picture, but also be very aware just look at the long term anymore, that people are going through tremendous pain and, a huge change that no one's seen before. Not unlike Sandy, right? At that time, nobody had experienced it. So I think that was one of the big, one of the most challenging things that we had to deal with. So.
I had one recently where it was a project that engagement was a very significant part of. In this particular community was about 50 or 60% Latino, so engaging the Spanish-speaking population was extremely important, particularly since it was a downtown revitalization plan, and many of the small business owners were of that community. And we had a whole plan and process that we had started, but it became very clear within about month 1 or 2 that we just weren't hearing from them, we were not seeing, we were not reaching that community. And that we were starting to get some negative feedback on that, we were not working hard enough. And so we really pivoted, and I think needs to be an important part of every engagement strategy, is that you need to be able to be flexible, and when something's not working, change it up. And so we did a lot of very targeted outreach to individual people within that community who were trusted, who were sort of liaisons into the community. We had an all Spanish meeting in the church. We'd always translated many things, but we translated everything. We had in-person translators at the meetings, to the point where these people who were initially angry with me were hugging me at the end of the process, and we're very happy, and I think felt like they were allies. So it was a successful process, but it took a lot to get there. We were committed to that. We wanted to make sure that we heard them.
Great.
I just have one last question. I see we have a couple of merchants here from uptown, and we have an Upper Millburn Avenue. So this is all about the downtowns. I think we also have to keep in mind that we do have, I don't know how many of those 17% of empty storefronts are uptown, but I think we have to be really cognizant that we do have three other sections. We have Chatham Road, we have Upper Millburn Avenue, and we have Morris Avenue. And I wonder if 17% of those vacancies are from there too.
It's cumulative, it's in the whole.
Right, but I'm saying we have to really be very important not to leave out a really important area that we want to grow.
Well, so can I just speak to that? Because when
Sure.
we were talking about this and putting the scope, that actually isn't in the scope, and the thinking was let's start here and then let's do that. So I agree with you that I do not want to ignore our other business districts, and they absolutely need to be addressed. And this is a 5-month process, so hopefully this will be really successful, and then everyone will say, all right, let's do it again for the other 2 areas.
No, and I'm saying, right, what I mean is while we're designing and scoping and thinking and, visioning, let's not forget that they will be affected by whatever happens, as well as the neighborhoods, yeah.
No, that's an important part of the analysis, also to understand the downtown's place within Millburn,
Right.
and other business districts, as well as your surrounding communities. I mean, every downtown around us is going through a lot of the same things, and in some ways are a bit of a competition, but also perhaps some lessons learned and some best practices. So we're looking at all that.
And I love that you live in the next town, literally, so you really do know. You have to come from Upper Millburn Avenue to come to our downtown.
Right.
So just keep that in mind.
Just came tonight.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, at this time now, we'll take comments from the public. Please keep in mind that we're going to limit those questions to 3 minutes to give each person adequately. You can stay right where you are, sir. Stay right where you are. You don't have to come to the podium because of COVID. I'm sure you can speak.
Everybody else did. Boy Scouts did. The Boy Scouts did.
I think they should be on the microphone or recording.
Then come to the microphone.
Yeah, go ahead.
Then come to the microphone. Pardon me? The timer, yes.
The overall time is 10 minutes.
Good evening.
Yes, 15 minutes.
Yes.
Good to see everybody, sort of. Number one, thanks for the presentation. You're not going to be doing any real estate renting, though. You're not going to find tenants for vacant storefronts, correct? That's not what you do? Okay. What's the average hourly rate that your firm would charge for all this service?
It's in here. We have
We-
rates
It's a cumulative rate, and it's a flat, it's a fixed fee that the township is engaged.
So it's one price, 200,000 out the door.
189.
189,000 out the door, done? Yes, I'm taking that as a yes. It's $189,000 for their work.
We just told you that was
Yes.
what the price
Okay.
was.
Next question is, when the committee was doing their due diligence and interviewing all of the other responders to the request for proposal, did your due diligence include the lawsuits against Perkins Eastman, including the one that was just settled for involving the wharf project for $1.2 billion that they just settled in March? Was that part of the due diligence? They were actually sued for negligence.
Okay, so I will answer that.
Okay.
And I will say that no, that was not part of our discussions.
They were sued for professional negligence, and they paid a big settlement.
Okay.
This company
So do you
that's
have
here today.
excuse me, do you have a question for
My question is,
Perkins Eastman?
did your due diligence, was there due diligence? And if there were, did it include knowing that they've been sued successfully for professional malpractice?
So I just answered you saying that no. Do you have a question for Perkins Eastman? Or are you
Yes.
just up here to make a statement?
Well, the question is, do you admit that you were sued for malpractice for the wharf project? Is that a yes or a no? Do you know about the lawsuit? But you know about the lawsuit. You know that your company was sued for professional malpractice. You don't know. You know about a lawsuit, but you don't know that they were sued for malpractice.
The question should be addressed to me. Thank
Okay,
you.
the question is, they were sued for malpractice. They just settled in March. This isn't their first time being sued for malpractice. They were also sued
Thank you for
in
your
earlier
comments.
lawsuits.
Thank you for your comments. Next question, please.
Are these questions just limited to them right now?
Yes, this is questions only related to Perkins Eastman, not, and the proposal.
Okay. First of all, thank you all for your volunteer effort. I know this is a thankless position, and it was really nice of you to give an opportunity to the scouts. I know all three of them. They're great young men, so I really appreciate that. You know, I am struck by the focus on downtown, despite the bid being all the business districts. Heartened to see some exchange that we need to keep the other parts of town in focus. I also heard a lot about development, and I have some pause about a focus on development rather than beautification or other, traffic flow or other things, because some of the development that's already happened is leading to more growth in our schools than projected. Already out by the mall, instead of the original 40 students, we're at 140 and counting. And did you know over the last 30 years that in Westfield...
Wait, how do you have
Excuse me.
numbers about the mall?
Where did you get those numbers?
It's in, well, now
Wait,
you're going to
wait,
pause
wait.
my clock. You're taking my time, Mayor.
No.
So,
But when you
no,
state
you're
a
taking
number,
my time now.
When you
All right?
state a number,
Over the last 30 years in Westfield, the student population in the high school grew by 30%. In Summit, it
excuse
grew
me,
by 60%.
You have a number
Excuse
from Matt
me, it's
Cali?
my time.
That's fine, but I want to know
In
where you got the
Chatham,
number from
it
Matt
grew
Cali
by nearly
from.
80%. And Chatham, where I grew up, had a lot more open land.
what is the question?
In Millburn, our student population in our high school has grown by over 85%. Lots more development is going to grow more student population in our schools. In Chatham, they've done school capacity studies to know how much more development they can handle. So while I applaud a visioning exercise, I'd like to know if we have any information or planning or projection on the school-age population and the impact on our schools. We don't yet. And that's not your fault. That's something that the Township Committee should be coordinating with the school board to do a capacity
we sit
study.
actually, I sit as a liaison with the school board. So wait, what is your name again?
Volpicelli.
Volpicelli. I think that you are spouting a lot of misinformation right now and a lot of numbers.
Do you have a capacity study? You don't. You
Actually,
don't. Chatham has. We don't.
But I want to know about the Matt Cali apartments because I'm amazed that you have a number of 104 students coming in from up there. Where did you get that from?
140. I believe that's the last thing they've stated.
From who?
From who?
Well, you guys do your,
From
do
no,
you
no,
guys do
no,
your
from
diligence.
who?
This is misinformation,
This is
sir.
unbelievable.
This is not accurate.
I mean,
This
you
is
can
not-
come
So
up
do you
here
have
and
it?
lie if you
Well,
want.
do you-
but
do
this
you
is
have it? Does the school have it?
unbelievable.
What is your source of your information?
So you guys find out.
All right, do you have a
Well,
question
As a
for
school
the
board, I
planning?
did. I asked whether they had any information on the planning for.
Amazing. Are you
student
running for
aid
township
population.
committee this year?
I am.
Okay,
Thank you.
Lovely.
All right.
And
thank
so
you.
I
Lovely.
want to know
Thank you so
what
much
else
for
you
standing
guys are
up here.
working on.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
your comment and for standing up here. These are questions for our planner, and then we're going to move on. You have one?
I haven't even asked my question.
Just, I'm just stating what's going on right now.
My name is Jeffrey Feld. I have two questions. First, you used the word many times, consensus. How do you define that term, and how do you gauge the word consensus and buy-in by the business community into like the local areas? The other one is like, if you can tell me some references, what communities have you serviced in New Jersey that had a train station and it had unmet affordable housing needs? So we at least can see examples of your work.
Oh, the purpose of the vision plan is not to address affordable housing
No.
exclusively.
Oh, wait, I'm just asking where they did work before so we could gauge their work product. Because one of the issues I did not raise before, one of the first words they used was transit center. They didn't mention they have
We
to
have
factor
two
in.
train stations, Mr. Feld.
I didn't ask, the question is geared to them. How do they define the term consensus? Who else have they worked for in New Jersey that had a train station and had an unmet affordability need? Because that's part of the project they said they had to factor in. That's what she said before.
Questions only, or may I make a statement?
Wait. Eric, I think, is going to respond to Mr. Feld.
Yeah, well, we talked about that, I guess the word consensus in the presentation, and I was saying it's not unanimity. I think that's not possible anywhere, anytime, unless you're in a communist society. But I think that in my way of working, what we always seek is that everybody understands the issues very clearly. Not everybody's going to agree, and that as we go along, that we frame the problems so they're very clear and transparent. There's no hidden kind of agendas, and if there is agreement amongst Congress and the people who are making the decisions, who are surely answerable. And typically, when we work with the public sector, they're answerable to everyone out there. Then we move forward. We try to, at each stage, also make sure that we have opportunities to check. Right? So at the end of our analysis, which is very important, so you guys should pay attention to that. That's when we set kind of the big picture kind of parameters. Options period. So we'll test those because different things mean different words mean different things. So that's what I mean. It's not a dictionary definition, but that's kind of our process. And it's worked.
Yeah. And in terms of communities that are dealing with affordable housing, I mean, this is not an affordable housing study. Obviously, it's an important component. It's an important thing that we need to take into consideration. I don't see it as the driver of this plan. The most recent community I've been involved with, unfortunately, doesn't have a train station, but Parts of Torrey Hills has a very significant affordable housing process that they've gone through. They're a little bit farther along than you guys. They had a number, and they've actually settled. But we've been involved with them in terms of their affordable housing plan and shepherding that through. I sit on the Chatham Affordable Housing Committee, so we've done, we've had some of the same issues as you all have, and thinking about future development opportunities in the downtown. I mean, it's in the newspapers, you can look at it. We looked at that in the past, and the affordable housing component is one aspect. It's an opportunity to maybe pick up some of your obligation, but it's not a driver.
Thank you.
Thank you for your.
Thank you. Amy, yes, go ahead.
Yep.
Yes, please.
So, Amy Lawrence, 36 Hawthorne Road. I am here from my professional and personal experience to speak in favor of the vision plan. Please don't kill me, guys. So first off, full disclosure, right, and transparency. I have volunteered to be on the steering committee for the vision plan. And my reason for volunteering is not about, about me personally or about politics or any of this stuff, but because I have volunteered in the past for a related committee, and I think it's just very valuable and important for our community, the particular project we're talking about. So a little bit about me. I have 20 years of professional experience relevant to this project. I work in commercial real estate. I do strategic planning in real estate. I do public and private financing of real estate. I worked as a consultant to nonprofit organizations, arts, education, healthcare, etc., advising them on real estate matters. I currently manage a portfolio of retail leasing in the Northeast, and I manage all of my company's real estate transactions in Latin America. Okay, so I do lots of deals.
You got 1 minute.
Sorry, I'm running out of time.
1 minute,
Enough
30
about me. Who
seconds.
cares about me? The point is, so back in 2017, some folks in Glenwood section said, Amy, do you know what's going on here with the affordable housing, blah, 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 blah. I started coming to township committee meetings. I was like, what's going on? This seems really, I work with developers, but I don't necessarily willy-nilly support development. At the time, then Mayor Burstein asked for volunteers from the community to participate. I'm going to lose my time. Maybe someone else will give me.
You still have 30 seconds out.
Okay. Right. So Mayor Burstein said she was looking for volunteers, so I volunteered, and Mayor Burstein appointed me to the ad hoc committee for the DPW relocation project, the potential of doing that. So I joined that committee, which continued under Mayor Eglo, which you were supportive of, and rightfully so, to think about could we move what we call the dump site to another location, which has been going on for a long time, right? This conversation, but could we move it somewhere else and use that for something better for the community? And that something better could be community facility, it could be parking, it could be senior housing, et cetera, et cetera. So we went through a long process of that. And there are ways to, if a relocation, if an appropriate receptor site could be found, there are ways to do that. That's the challenge. But there are things that could be done where you put the property back on the tax roll, where you develop something or you use it for something beneficial to the community. Could I have no? Could I have somebody else's time?
Just
I know. But
Just finish up,
Amy.
Amy.
Finish, Amy.
Finish up.
Respectfully. It could be used for something else and go back on the tax roll. You could retain control of the site. You could do a ground lease, with an RFP. The town can maintain control of the site, and it could become beneficial for the town, right? So, but the thing about that is that you can't look at that in isolation, right? You can't. What became obvious to me and other people, right, is that you can't just say, okay, we're just going to think about this one site, and not think about the decaying infrastructure that's behind it, right? Or what's across the street from it, or down the road at the parking, right? So you have to think of it more holistically. And to me, that's what this particular vision plan does. It's appropriate, and you need to look at, the aesthetics and the traffic and all of that together, right? And so, just a final note from, my consulting days, we used to talk about being intelligently opportunistic, right? So I would do planning with my clients. We would have a plan, and then as things came along, opportunities, we would know, does that fit in our plan and our vision, or does it not? Because we knew what we wanted to do. But if you don't know first what you want to do and what that vision is, things come along and then you scramble and you go, oh, well, maybe we should, you're not focused and you're not. So I think this is a very good thing, which is why I volunteered, and I support it. That's it.
Thank you.
Why didn't they hire you?
But she's not on this steering.
She is. She's not.
I can't now. I don't do that anymore.
Here. Anybody else have a comment with respect to the Perkins Eastman plan?
Mayor, we have 2 people on Zoom and then a number of people from the back room that
With this Perkins Eastman?
it could be public comment just because.
Okay, well, it's, okay, but we're only
It's
taking,
tonight.
we're gonna, if they're not,
I'm not sure until they get on, I'm not, until they come up.
They can do it in their public comment.
okay, so we're gonna close this Perkins Eastman period, and we're gonna proceed with public comment. Perkins Eastman, thank you very much for coming this evening.
Yes, there's a website off, Alex,
Yeah,
can you?
so, all this information is live on the website now, under the business tab on the homepage, which people can go and view and certainly we'll have, what's
Sure.
presentation for
Okay, we're gonna just take a 2-minute recess in between. Yeah,
Sorry, they do have a question. But
Oh, they do?
okay. All right, we'll
They're
take this
coming in right
question.
now.
You wanna go, you wanna listen?
we're
to
gonna
that?
wait.
Okay.
I have a question.
On Perkins Eastman, on this
We
presentation?
were just told we could come in about 20 minutes ago, and then they told us we couldn't until somebody here told us we could. Now you've closed down the comments.
You can go ahead.
No, it's open, it's open.
Yeah. Is this Perkins Eastman?
Yeah. You can come right here to speak.
Speak right here. You're masked.
Otherwise, it won't be on the recording.
That's okay. I'm Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart Avenue. I did a quick search and I saw the first thing I saw was that there was a lawsuit
Yes,
with
we
this.
already have discussed that.
Who discussed that? In public?
It was already discussed, it was mentioned, it was discussed.
I mean, I've been here the whole time. I've tried to listen as carefully as we could with a video screen in there. I didn't hear any mention of it. I'm sorry.
I think you can just make your statement, that's fair.
Excuse me?
Make your statement, I believe that.
Yeah,
would be fair.
I would like to understand
sorry,
why
my mic
we're
was off.
engaging someone who just settled a lawsuit over a $1.2 billion project. That's my question. Thank you.
They should bring their lawyers here so we can talk to the lawyers.
Okay, recess?
Anybody else?
Bathroom break?
Do you have a question with respect to Perkins, with this? Okay, we're gonna, thank you. Thank you, Perkins Eastman. We're gonna take a 5-minute break for our committee.
Yes.
Stretch break.
Just keep in mind, you're still being live streamed.
Oh, Chatham, yeah, please don't. We're so much smaller, it's so much easier. I don't think so. Have the whole time we're used to it.
So who do you work for?
How are you?
I mean, the way 2020 is going, I've decided I'm not really planning more than like 3 months in advance at this point. So. That's true. See what happens. It's so cold. I know.
You know, we're spending a lot of money tonight, so let's conserve some.
2020 is one of the first big monster attacks of the year in the whole room.
No, do not put the heat on. Do not put the heat on.
No, I said I'm cold.
It's all right.
I'm cold also.
No, it's a little chilly, but I don't think we should put the heat on.
No, I said, I meant to turn the AC
Hey,
down.
Richard, can I talk to you for 1 second? Sorry.
Did you tell, yes, did you?
Yeah, you should be thanking me. And you did split, you did support me.
Okay, very good.
Pre-pandemic.
Everything changed, right? We all have a record.
Joe, unless you want to stick around.
Anyway. We're ready? Yeah, maybe I can get. You ready? Yeah, it's okay. We're good?
Do you want a mint? I have mint. I filled my mint.
No, I'm just gonna get one refill.
Yeah.
Do you want a mint, Jackie?
Yes, please.
Oh, that was how pathetic was that? Ay. You're welcome. I'll leave them out. You want a mint?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll see them?
They'll get audio only.
Oh, audio
It'll be
only.
like a phone call.
Okay.
Yeah, just audio.
Shall we wait for Richard?
We're good.
We will now continue. Public comment. When invited to speak, come to the lectern, clearly state your name and address, and speak loudly so your comments may be understood and properly recorded. This is a Zoom webinar option for those who could not attend the meeting in person. Please state your name and address. You said that. Whenever an audience or committee member reads from a prepared statement, please email a copy to the township clerk. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when 30 seconds are remaining. Remember, this is a business meeting, and we must address professionals or staff directly. All comments are directed to me. I will also mention that for those who do not comply, you will be asked to leave and escorted out of the building. For all TC members, please address me as the chair. Thank you. Now, we'll take a question from the audience first. and then we'll go to the video.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Feld. I am a resident that lives at 11 Alexander Lane, Short Hills. Earlier this evening, I want to identify myself. I am the person that filed the notice of the civil rights violation tort claim. So everyone knows in the town, I'm the person that questions whether our rights as to the robust marketplace of free ideas was violated at the last meeting. My comments really are, I want to focus, before we heard about consensus, but also we've been hearing about how open, transparent we are. And I want to look at the agenda. On the agenda, there's a bill list. There's only a total. In various other communities, they attach the backup. That's very important because the community where my business was located was Orange. And through the bill list, we discovered various acts of mal and misfeasance. And I would just ask, going forward, that the bill list, the backup, which you get, the public has. In addition, there's a question of when we get the right to see the agenda actual packet. Under your website, because it's only 3 hours before the meeting. Earlier today, I sent you the DCA guidelines, 48 hours. If you're posting your agenda, why can't we have the underlying documents 48 hours before so we can give intelligent questions? Because when you talk about open transparency, that's a very simple one. In the last 3 weeks, when I got more involved in the SID issue, I went back to the minutes in January, and I discovered that you retained a criminal defense firm in connection with a federal preliminary investigation. That's what the retention resolution said. It was shocking. Because we don't really have investigative reporting, no one ever picked that up. I mean, that's kind of pretty important that you're hiring an outside defense firm for some kind of federal investigation. That goes back to transparency. Make sure we can have access to the documents. I want us to avoid being classified like Englewood Cliffs. Because in August last year, Englewood Cliffs was found to act in bad faith with affordable housing. This past weekend, their mayor gave a high school student a bill for $2,500 for Black Lives Matter. We don't want to be in the same way. I believe we have an easy exit ramp as to what occurred at the last meeting. Please look at there. You have the issues I set forth. There's a constitutional issue that we have. Because you're using to fund taxpayers' monies, my taxpayer monies, I don't have a business downtown, to fund the SID for 16 months, there's a question whether we violate certain prohibitions in the state constitution. I have heard no one address that issue yet. Everyone's been focusing, with all due respect, a sideshow Bob issue as to conflicts. There's real issues as consensus. Did you have buy-in? I beat a SID in Orange because they did not have it. You could talk to Jeff Bueller. There's really issues. We should not be wasting money litigating issues like this. We don't want to have a test case as to transparency, civic participation. Because of what the rules are, what's happening in Orange and in Millburn today by being Zoom, not giving us 48 hours notice, especially when you now admitted today that you appointed people to a bid in SID that wasn't even in existence. It didn't come into existence for like 2 weeks or after that. Do you really want to go into court and lose your goodwill?
Kit, is there any response? No response. Kit
You
respond.
want to let
No.
Kit respond?
No.
Okay,
No, we can't.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Hi, my name is Richard Footer, 333 Millburn Avenue. Mayor Jackie Benjamin Lieberberg and committee members. Whoop, excuse me for 1 second. This will help. Okay. Okay, Mayor Lieberberg and Committeeman Wasserman, regarding the SID assessment, you have asserted that the average property would experience an annual assessment of approximately $600 when the assessment is imposed beginning 2022. You appear on Zoom and YouTube saying that. I was recently copied an email in which Millburn Township CFO was asked, please explain in detail, including calculations, as to how the commercial property owner will be taxed in 2022 with the newly adopted SID assessment in accordance to August 11, 2020 Township Committee approval. His answer was, here is how SID calculation will work. Property assessment times rate times percent commercial equals SID assessment. Rate is based on the budget divided by the total assessment of qualifying properties in the district. The key is the budget we would have no way to know for sure until the SID introduces a budget to the Township Committee, but estimates have been made based on the 2018 DMDA budget. I hope this helps. Jason. If the SID were to borrow funds for improvements, this is after his comment, and begin to repay loans and grants, that will become part of the assessment and be passable to the tenants. How does that help businesses? Early in the process, the Township Committee was prepared to start the SID operations beginning in January 2021. What was the cause to rush the start earlier? It has become clearer that the SID ordinance is not about helping business, but rather Millburn satisfying requirements and becoming a transit village. Why was that never discussed during all of the info sessions and Township Committee meetings regarding the creation of a SID? Nobody is ignoring the obligation to affordable housing. However, residents have been vocal about their objections to the Woodland Road plan, the construction adjacent to the Short Hills Mall, and the Wells Fargo property. Why wouldn't Millburn Township address this obligation through zoning rather than put another burden on commercial property owners and businesses? Why wouldn't the residents be given the opportunity to weigh in on such an important township issue? And Transit Village would guarantee more construction. Tell me how that would help the businesses that are still reeling from complete streets and the pandemic. About multiple housing, school enrollment will increase. Developers may opt to negotiate pilots, pay in lieu of taxes. The school budget will be negatively impacted while the enrollment increases. From all that I have read on the topic, there is no guarantee how much, if any, contribution the Board of Education will realize through pilots. Who will make up the difference to the school budget? Commercial and residential property owners. As a side note, as properties convert to multiple housing projects, they will be removed from the SID assessment rolls, as they will no longer be classified as commercial. The result will be greater assessment being divided into a smaller number of commercial properties, thus increasing the assessment portion on any one commercial property. Are the members of the SID's Board of Trustees and the Advisory Board included under Millburn Township's liability insurance coverage? Has the SID DMC been officially recognized by the IRS as a 501c3? Are each of you personally knowledgeable regarding the requirements of the IRS for the qualifications necessary to be designated as a 501c3? Are each of you personally knowledgeable at what is stated in Title 15A? SIDs are supposed to be self-help, self-financing mechanisms. Self-help has been stripped away as the stakeholders have no say in anything, including the ability to elect representation by those who will be expected to pay. With self-help being stripped away, the term self-financing becomes an oxymoron. There is no buy-in. Are each of you personally knowledgeable to the contents of NJSA 40:56-65, 2003? You need to rescind Ordinance 2561-20. Thank you.
Yes, let's take some calls from the,
First,
yeah.
first one is Jade. Jade should be able to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jade Wicker. I live at 85 Rector Street. I'm a former Millburn student and I recently graduated with the class of 2020. My friend Henry Nolfil and I wrote a letter 2 months ago to the Township Committee highlighting the existing racial inequities that exist in Millburn. We wrote this letter in hopes of encouraging the Township Committee to support its Black community, not only by enacting reform, but by raising a Black Lives Matter flag in front of Town Hall. We also created a petition online that received close to 300 signatures and almost 1,000 views from Millburn residents. Black Lives Matter is not about Marxism or fascism or communism or terrorism, as some Millburn residents choose to believe. Black Lives Matter is about ending police brutality against Black and brown people in America. Not only is it about reforming the corrupt justice system in this country and ending racial discrimination and inequities, but it's also about ending racial discrimination and inequities. Many residents of Millburn like to believe that we live in a perfect community where anyone can call the police and know that they'll ensure our safety. That's not the case for all our residents. Many residents believe we live in a community where we can wave to our friendly on-duty officers, but for the minority here, we fear being racially profiled and interrogated as we walk down Millburn Ave or make our way to work or to school. While the majority don't have to worry about being turned away by local realtors, the minority worries about it constantly. Most Millburn students have teachers who look like them and don't realize until later on that the minority of students never even see one teacher who looks like them during their time in Millburn. While yes, Millburn is a lovely community and is mostly welcoming, with great people who make each other feel safe, we can all see that we need to try harder to make this a place where Black people feel safe and welcome too. With that being said, we ask you to adopt this policy that was shared with the Township Committee and raise a Black Lives Matter flag in front of Town Hall. Thank you.
Thank you.
No,
We have a
there's
couple more.
not, you want to do one, we're going to do another one from Zoom, and then we'll do the, you sir.
We have Henry, who should be able to speak.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
My name is Henry Nolfin. I live at 14 Pine Terrace East. I am a member of Millburn High School class of 2019. The policy that was sent to you on flag raising that Jade and I wrote with the help of the Millburn Short Hills Anti-Racist Task Force bypasses this issue of raising non-nationally recognized flags on municipal government and enables the committee to enact a process for flag raising that filters banners and messages they might deem undesirable. The committee's decision on the matter of what flags to fly or not to fly can demonstrate their position on the message of the flag that it sends and will not be dictated simply by the fact that someone proposes to fly a certain flag. Our policy will give the committee a way to reject flags with messages that endorse violence, illegal activities, discrimination, prejudice, or racism. There are multiple criterion that would bar certain flags as per the policy, and should the committee adopt it, the reasoning for rejecting certain flags and not others would not be a matter of a nebulous opinion of the committee, but would be codified within municipal policy that the committee could point to. With causes as important as the one at hand, problems with the municipal code should not exist as one of the main obstacles to a flag that is vitally important to making Millburn Short Hills the most welcoming community it can be. With this said, we ask you to adopt this policy for flying non-nationally recognized flags and to fly the Black Lives Matter flag at the Town Hall. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more on the Zoom.
Okay, or do you want to take the Zoom, or let's take
It's
this?
up to you.
Yeah, let's
Meeting.
take this.
Hi, my name is Eddie Bakalis. This is my son Elias Bakalis. We're at 46 Raleigh Place. We are, well, I'll let him speak for himself. I am very strongly opposed to any sort of flying flags or painting Black Lives Matter in the streets. There's a game that Black Lives Matter, that people play between the statement Black Lives Matter and the organization Black Lives Matter. The organization Black Lives Matter, if you go and you look on their website at what they stand for, and if you also look at what they have removed in the last few months, you will see that they are a vilely anti-Semitic organization. that they have, that they support in many ways the violence that is happening in Portland and Seattle. Two people have been apparently killed in the last few days at events related to Black Lives Matter. That doesn't mean that the organization was doing it, but this is what's going on right now. Innocent people dying at these events, and to, at this point, be endorsing that. And you are endorsing the organization, and there's no other way to put it. It's not the statement. The flags that are being flown on town halls and being painted, that's in the design of the organization. So my parents are both Holocaust survivors. I'm very lucky to have them. They have spoken many times at Millburn High School. They have been paired with bar mitzvah students at the local synagogue here, and my parents are absolutely terrified of this organization. They are terrified to leave their apartment because of what's going on, because of the disarray in the streets that has come about in the wake of the rise of this organization. However understandable the emotions were, the aims of the organization go far beyond that packed statement. And I see I only have 12 seconds left, but I think my son could have a minute or so. 3 minutes. I don't think he has 3 minutes to say.
Well, yeah, so I'd like to ask, like, what constitutional grounds do you have to put that up if you do decide to? And also I'd like to add that the violence that's being committed in part like in the name of the Black Lives Matter organization, kind of, it is causing racism against black people from people who may not have been racist before, but now, because of all this violence that's happening because of it, are getting angry about this and turning their anger in the wrong direction.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take one from the Zoom, and then we'll, yep.
We have Regina Truitt.
Okay.
Good.
You go ahead, Regina.
Okay. Hi guys, it's Regina Truitt. I live on Hartshorn Drive. Thank you for your service to our community. I wanted to support Jade and Henry and other members of the Millburn Short Hills Anti-Racism Task Force in their request to have a Black Lives Matter flag hang over Town Hall on flagpole out front. The Black Lives Matter guiding principles are to eradicate white supremacy and intervene in violence inflicted on black communities and black members of communities through advocacy, fundraising, and education. There is a precedent for flying flags over Town Hall that support groups such as the Pride Month flag, which I also fully support. So in light of that, there are other flags similar. I would support this flag as a statement to our black community members that we support them and recognize that Black Lives Matter and the issues growing up as a black community member in Millburn. Thanks again.
Thanks, Regina.
Thank you.
My name is Jillian Bronstein. I'm a resident of town. I live at 45 Barnesdale Road. I am appalled that honestly this is even being discussed. Regina, I hope you can hear me. There is no equivalency of raising an LGBTQ flag and a Black Lives Matters flag. LGBTQ does not call for the destruction of Israel. It is not anti-Zionist. It does not blatantly try to defund the police. It does not promote anarchism. All lives matter. I think we all realize that. I actually am a realtor. I'm just not actively working now. I have never turned anyone away based on their religion, race, creed, nor would I. I commend that Jade and her colleague feel that they're doing something that's helping the whole community. However, they're going to divide this community like we've never seen before. There is no precedent to hang a flag that does have political affiliation, that is blatantly supporting a group that is indeed racist, because if you don't agree with them, then you are called a racist and you are the enemy. It takes away people's freedom of speech by this town making a stand by hanging that flag. I personally will be very insulted as someone who is of a religion which they are against. And it's very obvious, it's online, you can see recordings, hear recordings, and I can guarantee you that if this town does that, we will be on Fox News again. I have no doubt. So I hope you all think very wisely before you make a very bad decision and open Pandora's box. Because if you hang that flag, you also should hang a Nazi flag if white supremacists feel that they want a Nazi flag hung in this town. It is unacceptable, inexcusable, and should absolutely not happen. Period.
No, I would ask you to please refrain from applause.
Well, let it speak.
Good evening again. My name is Andrew Lane. I am almost without words, but I will seek to overcome my natural shyness to share. My father was a liberator. He liberated the death camps in Europe. I serve in the New York Guard, their oldest recruit, but I serve as much as they will allow me. I serve in an Army unit that is composed of men and women, all colors, all races, all religions. We do not have any flag except the flag of the United States of America. I work with many teenagers, and I applaud the teenagers who have taken the time from their schedules to share over the internet their thoughts, but they are very susceptible. We should not bend to the whims of the few based upon the fashion of the moment. We should maintain a steadfast course. We are a United States of America. All of you are serving in your capacity. All of us are participating in the democratic process. Our differences are not consequential. Our similarities are what we should be focusing upon. We don't need flags from different groups, albeit sometimes their perspective is righteous in their minds, but the reality when you turn on any of the media is that there is a great deal of violence associated with them. These children may disown it, but their leaders do not. We should not become part of this storm. We should maintain what we're doing. A decent community of good people doing their very best. Not denying racism is not the same as saying you support it. You are turning it upside down. We are all good people. I don't believe that there's a racist in this room. We should maintain where we are, and we should stay course. We will get past this. This pandemic will end, this violence will end, and we will still be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Jenna Israel on the.
I have to add just one little thing.
Oh, she's on.
Hey, well, we'll take this call, and then you.
You go ahead, Jenna.
Hi, my name is Jenna Israel. I live on Briarwood Drive. I just want to respond to some of the things that I've heard folks make in folks say in their comments. First of all, Black Lives Matter is absolutely not anti-Semitic. I understand where you're coming from. I myself am Jewish. I myself, my last name is Israel. I understand where people are coming from, that Black Lives Matter has made statements about Israel and Palestine that you disagree with. I do not believe that those statements are anti-Semitic or coming from an anti-Semitic place. I believe that they are trying to do right by Palestinian people who've been oppressed by the current Israeli administration. So on that front, I truly don't believe that Black Lives Matter is anti-Semitic in any way. I also want to say some folks have talked about the violence that has occurred at Black Lives Matter protests. That violence is done by police and white supremacists. People who have been killed by white supremacists. So a 17-year-old white supremacist just recently killed someone in Kenosha. The violence that is happening, the killing and the maiming and harming of people is happening by police who are arresting people violently, beating them and killing them, and by white supremacist protesters who have come to hurt the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter protesters are not committing violence against people. I just want that to be known. That is really, really important. When you talk about violence, you have to talk about who is doing it and doing it to who. Another thing that I want to talk about is that someone said something about if we don't put up the flag, it's not that we're not racist, we're just not putting up the flag. If you want to not be racist, you have to be anti-racist. You have to actively work against racism. Otherwise, you are allowing racism to happen, and that makes you complicit in a racist system. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you. Excuse me, you've spoken.
I thought I'm allowed to go again.
No.
Can I take her time?
No.
Why?
We have other people that need to speak, and
How about, Madam Chair, at the end, she takes someone's turn?
May I take her time?
I think it's
no,
okay.
we're
Well, I
not.
am. Jenna, I hope you can hear me right now because you are really mistaken.
Okay, 1 minute, 1 minute.
No.
No, we have other people that want to speak.
Come on.
No. If you cannot.
Can she hear?
No, we cannot respond to other people's
Okay.
comments. You must direct all your comments to the chair. We are not, this is.
Okay.
And you have already spoken, so at the end, if the time permits,
Fine.
after everyone else has spoken.
That's good, Madam Chair.
I have to, wait, I have to. I don't want to. You can hear me from here, everybody can hear me from here. I
You
don't
need-
want to get up.
You need to get up so that you can be on the record, please. State your name and your address, please.
Laura Blasinski, 14 Ocean Street, Millburn. I just have to say that I think everybody in here will agree with me. We respect if you or me wants to have a Black Lives Matter. Totally agree. Have it at your house. Have it at your house. That's it.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
This isn't your jurisdiction to do that. We're gonna declare-
We have Carissa Riley, who's able to speak.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Carissa.
Hi. I'm a member of the Millburn Anti-Racism Task Force, and it was part of helping
Quiet,
Jade
please.
come up with this, bringing it to the town council to put a Black Lives Matter flag. I'm very supportive of this. I do not see Black Lives Matter flags or the organization as being anti-Semitic. It is the same thing as putting a pride flag to me. It is showing that we support and welcome that particular group, and we support the things that they have endured. It's not anti-anybody, it's pro. And it breaks my heart to hear people so upset about this.
You know, if you look at the Instagram account, Black at Millburn, the things that our children of color have gone through as growing up in this community, it has to stop. I feel that we need to make an anti-racism stand, that we're behind that we support all of our residents, especially our residents of color who have not had the same welcome that other groups have had. It's not a political statement, and it's not anti-anything.
I'm Spanish.
No,
You
no,
cannot.
Can't speak. You don't have the floor now. Thank you, Carissa. Did you have anything else to add?
And I'd also like to say thank you to Regina for attending. I'm sorry I couldn't attend with you.
She's with you virtually.
She was on Zoom also. Okay, thank you.
That's it right now.
All right, this is not.
Okay.
Heard of
No,
screaming.
she wants
No,
to-
yes, I know, but I'm just saying.
I'm sorry?
We can't have people screaming.
Hi. So, obviously you know why I'm here. I'm going back to the SID. And I did send my questions in advance, and through this whole process, none of my questions have ever been answered. So I'm not even going to waste my time asking my questions. But I simply will say is, why do we need the SID? And are you aware that 4 attorneys have looked into this conflict of interest issue, and all disagree with the township attorney's analysis? Additionally, there's been an ethics complaint filed and a lawsuit, which is the ethics complaint which is under review, and a lawsuit. None of this is a concern of yours? So I'm just going to leave it at those 2 questions. But I do have a statement, and I'm sorry I have to lower my mask. It's been since May that I've been totally distracted and pulled away from my own business, having to deal with the repercussions of the SID ordinance. This has been extremely disheartening and exhausting, to say the least. Not only are we trying to survive and navigate through these unprecedented times, but we've gotten absolutely no acknowledgement from the township, failed to show support to areas which have been included with the broadened footprint of this ordinance. We've given you many opportunities to answer our questions, hear our concerns, and work together as a community. You all would have shined. But there were no visits, no mask handouts, no street closures, no dining guides. And sadly, the township couldn't even spell our restaurant's name right. But what about including all the businesses in town? And not just, why was everything based around the eateries? And I'm a restaurant, and I'm like, what about our other retailers and merchants? You totally left them out. But what we did get, without a feasibility study and much opposition, was a new assessment tax with absolutely no commercial property owner buy-in. Observing these meetings, I've only seen bullying, not a community that comes together during uncertain times. Sadly, I've gained some enemies and severed relationships of a select few who don't even know me until this ordinance came into play. This has been a terrible experience with the township, and I've lost my faith, trust, and appreciation for a majority of their commitment. I am thankful for the friendships, the loyalty, and the commitment from the one behind me. Tonight, I ask the mayor not to be afraid, to be a leader, not a follower. I'm asking you to take charge of your town. Stand up for what's right. Do not be bullied. As a commercial property owner, I promise I'm almost done, and a merchant, I'm asking, please, don't just look at the votes, but stand together with the people that also are part of this town. Contribute to the town. Donate to the town. Add to the makeup and the dynamics. We are members that add and offer something to this town. How do you expect the commercial property owners and merchants to continue to support this town when the Township Committee won't extend the same courtesy. I've witnessed this committee bring every emotion out of people, pleading that you listen, hear their voices, consider their concerns, and answer their questions, including my own. But sadly, it's very clear, not only will you turn your backs on us, but it's evident you wouldn't kneel for all of us. I will tell you that when I go to church, I will kneel, and I will pray for all of you. May God bless you all, and all of Millburn and Short Hills. Thank you for your time and consideration to rescind this ordinance.
Anybody else, public comment?
Hi, I'm Jean Pellegrini, Pasternak, 342 Hobart Avenue. I have 4 things to say. I wanted to make a comment that I continue, I'm sorry? I know, it's mine. I don't know. Okay, closer, keep it on. Okay, I continue to support the business community in its request for transparency from this committee on all matters up to and including the SID ordinance and the seemingly done deal of hiring of Perkins Eastman with a recent legal matter that's of substance and should be considered, to the inclusion of the entire elected body in all deliberations to which they are entitled to be included. My second comment is this committee has gone down a slippery slope by hanging a flag other than the American flag in front of Town Hall. It is a process issue. It has nothing to do with favoring a group over another group or not wanting to include people that would wish to have something. I and everyone in this room support Jade and the other people who spoke toward wanting inclusion fully in our community. This has nothing to do with that. Thirdly, Mayor, are you going to apologize on behalf of the Township Committee members, including yourself, who acted in a very rude manner toward a citizen of Millburn who has put himself forward, like all of you have, which we all applaud, to put his time and effort into seeking an elected office in this body? There's already a question about Tara and her conflicted position on the SID vote. She made comments this evening publicly disparaging a candidate of the opposite party to which she is represented. I think this is also a conflict, and I do not think it's appropriate for those comments to have been made in this body. Fourth, are you going to enforce the rules about business-like manner equitably to all members of this audience, Mayor Lieberberg, such as the person sitting behind me who called that same individual who I just referred to as a candidate for Township Committee, naming him an asshole, excuse my quote, as he was exiting the room? Should he have been escorted out?
I didn't hear
Thank
the
you.
comment. Anybody else?
We have one more person who spoke already on Zoom that would like to speak
No
again.
applause, please. Go ahead.
Somebody wants to speak again.
Somebody, I'm
It's
sorry.
someone who spoke already on Zoom wants to speak again.
We'll take, there was somebody else who wanted to speak?
I'll just add one more thing.
And then we'll take that, and that'll be the end of public comment.
I just want to see if I heard correctly that in addition to hanging a Black Lives Matters flag, they also want us to paint Black Lives Matters in the street, which I have a huge problem with because I don't want my tax-paying money to be used for that, period. And I'm sure you'll have a lot of other residents who feel the same way. So again, think very long and hard about if you want to divide this community in a way like it's never been, because I really can guarantee you that the silent majority is not going to stay silent.
The last one.
You go ahead, Jade.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you for letting me speak again. I just wanted to share with you all, my grandparents are homeowners in Millburn. We live on Redford Street by the high school, and my neighbor put up
a Black Lives Matter sign in her window for us, which was very thoughtful, but my grandma was so afraid that angry Millburn residents would give her a hard time about it. And my neighbor, she didn't understand why anyone would be angry about it or why anyone would give her a hard time about it. And I think it's obvious from the way this meeting has went, the way people who support Black Lives Matter talk about the matter versus the way people who don't support it speak about it. You can hear the undeniable anger in everybody's voice, despite the fact that all we are asking for is equity and equality and no more discrimination. And raising this flag has everything to do with that, because if we don't want to raise this flag, then it's very hard to believe that the township of Millburn will do anything else to support its Black community. So, like someone else already said, raising this flag, there is no impartial, there is no indifference. You are either actively anti-racist or you are part of the problem. So I hope you take that into consideration. Thank you.
Yes, would you like to speak?
I am not racist, but
Please state your
Oh,
name and your address, and you can take your mask off
Okay,
to
that's
speak.
fine. My name is Alan Carlin, 246 Millburn Avenue, and I am not racist, but I do understand both sides, and I have to take issue with a lot that has been said today, and unfortunately, I think that I don't want to see the township be divided. That's all I have to say. And I know everyone wants to do the right thing, and I think it's very, very difficult, but I don't know if this is the place, or this is the place or the time or the venue to do it at this particular moment. It might be at a later time, but at this particular instant in time, I don't know if this is the right time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another new one came in on Zoom.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Robert Gerard. I live on Seminole Way. I'm African American. I'm actually calling you from California. I'm out here with my identical twin granddaughters who were born 5.5 months ago. I've lived in the town for 30 years. I've raised 3 Black children in town. I'm here to tell you that racism does exist in Short Hills, Millburn. In fact, it was part of the reason why I sent my kids to private school after spending many years in the public school system in Millburn. My kids participated in Little League, soccer, and what have you, and indeed enjoy a lot of the public spaces. But don't think for a moment, the one that doesn't exist, and that these are not issues that all of us as Black people in town have felt. Indeed, I've had discussions with my Jewish neighbors, several of whom have acknowledged their own name changes, which endure to this day. Name changes where they were changing their names from Jewish-sounding names to less-sounding Jewish names, and to this day, their friends and neighbors are not even aware of their Jewish heritage. This is a town that historically has had anti-Semitic experiences. I've talked to those same neighbors who talked about where they were being steered in terms of their housing and what have you. It's no different than it is with respect to other minority groups in the town, and I of course speak from literally a 30-year experience. That doesn't mean that things haven't improved to some degree. I'm sure they have, but let's face facts here. The town is 1%, less than 1% African American. We are at an inflection point in the country. I think being on the wrong side of this issue in history would be the case if we don't hang such a flag and acknowledge, if you will, the moral issue, which is really the one that's at issue here. this idea of sort of threatening the fact of how this would further divide a town is precisely the point. It's this lack of acknowledgement, if you will, which is critically important in order to get any kind of reconciliation. As the most affluent town in the state of New Jersey and among the country, think about what an incredibly effective and important statement that would be. Not just for the state, but for the country, particularly at this point in time, in order to support an idea built around equality, around social justice. I'm here to tell you there is not an iota of anti-Semitism that should be associated with Black Lives Movement. That is a trope situation where I don't know where it quite came from, but I'm here to tell you it doesn't really exist at all. And that's the sidelines of a guy in his late 60s who has a pretty good understanding of what this country is going through and who's been through those various issues himself. So that's why I appreciate the time and effort. I've stuck with this presentation for a very long time, hoping we would get to this. And I appreciate the township's attention to this very important matter and to the students and the anti-racism coalition that's been formed around it. Extraordinarily courageous, extraordinarily timely, and I think an important issue for the town to take on headlong in the way that supports that effort. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Bob.
You wanted to speak? Yes, please.
I just have a very short statement to make, and that is that everyone feels a prejudice at one time or another over the course of a lifetime, whether you are, and I am not
Could you please
Jewish,
state your name and
Tony
address?
Carter, Audubon Court in Short Hills. Everybody feels a prejudice at one time or another, whether you're Italian, whether you're Irish, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Muslim, and everybody can't have a flag raised in a community to soothe their feelings. It is my belief that dealing with prejudice makes an individual stronger. Everyone has an opinion about Black Lives Matter, but before any decision is made, please read the BLM manifesto on the internet, because that tells you exactly the way what they stand for, not what somebody thinks they stand for. Thank you.
Anybody else, Jimmy?
Another repeat person wants to comment again.
That's the last one.
I yield my time, remaining time to
Wait till somebody else.
No, we have this one, and then that'll be it.
Carissa?
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to add a little anecdote to my previous statement. Now, I don't know how many of you may have minority members in your family, but I have several. And my family also, the previous speaker, I totally understand what he said about Jewish families changing their names. My grandmother's family was Jewish, and in southern Indiana, you couldn't be Jewish. You had to assimilate. And thankfully, we don't have to do that here anymore. That's not an issue that we face at this time in history, but that's because we've progressed. But that's what the Black Lives Matter flag, and that's what the Black Lives Matter movement is about, is progress. And being silent is being complicit. And I can tell you, as a realtor, I have met with homeowners who have said, I don't want anyone to know my ethnicity. I've met with homeowners who have said, they have experienced police, they were taking out their trash and police going around the block to see if they really belonged to be there. Racism is alive and well. It is a monster in this town. And, we may like to think that we don't have racism, and we may like to think that we don't have drug abuse, and we may like to think that we don't have domestic violence, but all that is not true. Those are lies. all of that happens in this town and in every town. And that's why this town should participate like other towns and make a stand and be on the right side of history. Because we don't want to be on the wrong side of history. And we don't want to be on the wrong side of tomorrow either. So let's support everybody in this town, and let's support our brothers and sisters that haven't had the same experience that many of us have had. And I can tell you with people in my own family of color, their life experience is very, very different.
Thank you, Carissa. Okay, we're gonna take, Perry had one more comment, and Nancy, go ahead.
Go ahead, Perry, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I just, Hi. I just wanted to let the board know that in our last meeting in August, I had a tenant that was calling in, and I was under negotiation for tenancy. A lot of her questions, she was concerned about how much and what was that extra added assessment. That email also went to all of you. She got no response. She got a response from Christine Gotti. She said she was assured that these questions would be answered. So not only, and there was so much going on and people calling in that she was starting to get nervous, and there was a distraction and very much a deterrent. And she said to me, the bottom line is money. And it was my decision to decide if I'm going to absorb that fee of the new assessment that's coming in 2022, or am I going to defer it? It's an open envelope. I don't know what it was going to be, and I was honest. And I was very transparent. I told her that I am opposing the SID, and there's nothing I can do. It's beyond my control. But I just want you to know that this tenant walked away, so now you have a new statistic to your 17%. Thank you very much for that. So I don't know how long that's going to last empty again.
This will be the final public comment. Nancy Stone.
No, my name was Nancy Miranda first, which is a Latin name. I'm Jewish, Cuban, Puerto Rican. You can't get more racist than that growing up in Far Rockaway, Queens. We were the last Jewish graduating class of Far Rockaway High School before my parents moved to Cedarhurst, which was a similar community to this. And then David's parents, because we were high school sweethearts, moved to Syosset. This is very personal for me. And I can tell you that I know racism firsthand. I've experienced it. And my father-in-law changed his name from Finkelstein. I could have been a Nancy Finkelstein. Okay? And he's changed it to Stone, to Stein, which is stone. And it is appalling to me that anybody would disparage the police. It is appalling. And any of you that would condone that, it is heart-wrenching to hear the Millburn police or any police in this country disparaged in any capacity. Because you want to talk about racism, the Jews, the Turks, the Armenians, everybody has experienced racism in this country, in this world. But we're not asking for an Israeli flag to hang on Millburn. We're not asking for an Armenian flag or people genocide all over the world. I have to tell you, I wasn't going to talk tonight because we came for the SID, but this turned into, I don't even know what the hell it is. I have black customers. I always service everybody. And I have personally, oh, you're not really Jewish because you have a Latin list. They know my Latina background. And maybe that's why I'm so loud. But it is absolutely appalling that this is even on a discussion. It should be the American flag, period, the end. That's it. And God bless the Millburn. God bless the Millburn police and all the police in the United States. And I'm probably going to get, who knows what's going to happen because of this public statement. But I am so upset. I
Thank you, Nancy.
Consent agenda.
My name's Cohen.
Consent agenda items. Are there any comments from the committee with respect to the consent agenda items? 20-165 through 20-173.
Wait, I'm sorry, I do. On 2174?
Has been deleted
Oh,
from
I'm
the
sorry.
agenda.
Okay, that's what I thought, then oh, I have my original one, okay.
I think we should note that we are appointing new firefighters, and for the first time in Millburn history, one of them is female. So kudos to the fire department for bringing forth. Amber, yep. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 20-165 through 20-173, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second? Roll call, please.
Christine.
She's muted on her.
She'll have to call in.
Christine?
She's on mute. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Krupus?
Yes.
Ms. Saul Eglo?
Yes.
So just say yes. You all right?
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Couldn't hear you. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Saul Eglo.
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman.
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Wasserman, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2562-20.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2560-20, ordinance amending the supplementing the Township of Millburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. This is the ordinance, the restaurant ordinance. It basically allows a restaurant or food establishment to move into a vacancy that was a food establishment. It basically lowers a barrier for our food establishments, our restaurants in the downtown district to expand without going through zoning. And this is essentially going to lower an important barrier, so our restaurants and our food establishments can expand without the added burden of zoning and hiring architects and lawyers to simply fill a vacancy. So we were going to do this before, but and we were going to do it in other business districts, but but there were issues in other business districts. And we decided, and I thought it'd be a good idea, and I think there is a widespread consensus to do this in the downtown district. So that's the brief explanation. Do you want to?
Yeah, I move you to.
Yeah. Okay. I move this ordinance be taken up and passed on the first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item and the hearing and final passage on Tuesday, October 6, 2020.
May I have a roll, we need a second. Second.
So moved.
May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Ms. Saul Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes. I will be introducing ordinance 2563-20. This is an ordinance amending the Township of Millburn's development regulations and zoning ordinance. Earlier this year, a township resident on Park Road expressed concern over the zoning of a small area of the township that included Park Circle and Park Road. The concern presented to the Township Committee was that the streets designated as an R4 created numerous non-conforming lots. She asked that the Township Committee look into this matter. Paul Phillips prepared an analysis and concluded that, yes, indeed, that this should be changed to an R6 zone. Alex, is that a fair?
That is a fair representation of this change, yes.
Okay. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the laws in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, October 6th.
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Ms. Egla?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2564-20, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition by purchase of an easement interest in a portion of the real property located at 2 Oak Lawn Road, known as Block 2404, Lot 4. This ordinance is being proposed to authorize the acquisition of a permanent easement on 2 Oak Lawn Road in order to enable certain construction and maintenance of storm water sewer facilities to address the flooding which occurs on that property. And I believe, Alex, this has been going through our engineering department for quite a while.
Yes, it has.
And yeah, so this is the only way that the town can get to this broken, what do you call that?
Yeah, so we have a storm sewer system
Yeah.
on an existing easement that is not fully functional. We are going to obtain an easement on the other side of that to connect additional piping so that we can relieve the flooding in this particular location.
Right, and the only way to do this is to get this easement. Okay, I move, is that clear to everybody?
Yes.
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, October 6, 2020.
May I have a second? Second. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Ms. Egla?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Under old business, we will be reintroducing the ordinance on short-term rentals next meeting. We are awaiting some additional information regarding data analytics, the current status of home offerings, and compliance and surveillance costs associated with enforcement. We'll be reviewing those details and we'll be coming forward with a revised ordinance for the Township Committee.
Mayor?
David?
Oh, I'm sorry, I had a question.
Yes.
So you're bringing the ordinance in a new format, or it's not going to be the same ordinance that we looked at last year?
No, we had looked at something in March.
March.
And then we tabled it because of the pandemic,
Mhm.
because all short-term rentals were on hiatus during, and still with respect to Governor Murphy's ban on short-term rentals. So Deputy Mayor Pupis and I are looking at the document that Kit had drafted back in March, and we're waiting for some information regarding the costs for monitoring, using this outside Granicus, this outside agency, and what the costs associated with monitoring these properties. So once we have an idea of what the cost will be, then we'll be able to establish a fee structure so that the township is not out of pocket for any of the fees associated with maintaining these restrictions.
Okay, so number 3, which was the first application fee, would be $500.
No, I
That
think-
might be changed?
Yes, I don't want to discuss any of the fees until we look at what the costs are associated with monitoring, and then as well as whether or not, how many houses it could potentially be, whether or not we have the bandwidth currently to monitor and also to regulate, to make sure people are, their egress windows and their fire, and that they're protecting all the compliance with all of those things. So we're not at a point yet where we're discussing fees, but we will be up on the 15th.
So the 15th, you'll be introducing it as first read,
Yes,
but we'll see it before.
correct.
Okay?
And my expectation is to have something in place so that gives people an opportunity, if they have any existing, to start fresh with 2021.
Super.
Does any committee member have new business to address?
I do. So, I think that it's really important that we talk about raising the Black Lives Matter flag. I'm not really sure why the entire room emptied out, and I'd like to talk about this as a committee and see how we feel about it. I think that from tonight's everything that happened here, it's very clear to me that our township is divided, that raising a flag is not going to create division. Division is already here, and that we need to talk about it and we need to address it. And I think by flying the flag is a step towards addressing it and having that conversation, and it will open up a can of worms, and I think it's important. I think now is the moment and the place and the time to address it. So that's how I feel about it, and I'd like to see what my fellow committee members think about it. And I know it's a really sensitive subject, and I just want to acknowledge that, and acknowledge that I heard everybody's comments in the room and on the phone tonight. So with that, I do think that we should raise it and
Raise the discussion or raise the flag?
I think we should raise the flag and the discussion. Yeah.
Okay, so it is obviously an incredibly hot topic. I think the room emptied out because I don't think people realized we were going to be discussing it. People on the phone might realize. When this first came about, I speak to my family about this. I speak to my friends about this. And I actually was driving to Springfield today, and as I was driving past Mizell Park, there was a big banner that said, Union County supports Black Lives Matters. So then I specifically went to their town hall to see if they have the flag. They do not. Their flag happened to be at half staff, and I don't know why. Maybe because of that helicopter pilot, I'm not really sure. Is our flag at half staff, Alex? So maybe it was a Springfield resident. And I remember my first year on the committee, we were presented with, from the Hadassah, a resolution for the anti-BDS resolution. And I'm thinking that I think this might be a really good way to go, having a resolution by the Township Committee that, of course, I don't have the wording, we do not support racism, we do not support anti-Semitism, we support all lives. It was me originally who brought the pride flag to town for my family, and that is not a divisive issue. It is a completely inclusionary, which is why it's a rainbow flag. And then this year, we waited 2 weeks because we had to order a new flag with a black and brown stripe, which I didn't know that was the reason for the delay. So I think we are a very inclusionary community, but I think that I would support a resolution by the Township Committee how we feel, and that is my opinion.
So,
What? I'm sorry.
Oh.
So no, I do not support raising the flag at Town Hall. No, absolutely. I would support a resolution by our Township Committee how we feel, and I think that there is very strong agreement in the community that we do not support racism. We certainly don't want to, in fact, we just hired 5 new police officers. We love and need our police officers. They work so incredibly with our school ever since my kids started the DARE program in grammar school, elementary school. So our officers do nothing but support goodwill in this community. And I believe that we have a terrific relationship with our police force.
Well, I would also agree with you. We love our police. I think, Diane, you and I were on the finance committee where we wanted to make sure that we had enough police to make sure that we were all kept safe. And if anything, we're going, the other way. We're making sure that we have, more police to make sure that we're safe. And I do understand that this is a divisive issue. I do understand it, and so I do understand it. However, that being said, I also I wanted to applaud Jade Wicker, who really reached out to everybody, and I want to thank Bob Gerard for calling in,